And this noise, when this siren sounds, will be enormous. Here we are. They are through to the grand final and a shot at their 6th flag. What a season this has been for the Sydney Swans.
Hello and welcome to the CREEDCAST. My name is Dave, and as always, thank you for joining us on Thursday, the 26th of September, 6 days removed from the prelim final debacle that it was. We've had a variety of mishaps for me, for Jamie, just a little bit of illness, which I appreciate. He's pushed through plenty this year. So when he texted me the other night when we were originally going to record and said, I'm struggling, I genuinely was like, yeah, he must be struggling. So yeah, we're here on Thursday night recording. We're going to be rattling through the prelim final. Obviously, won't get too as deep into it as some might expect, because a lot of the storylines coming out of that are more the macro of where Port Adelaide's going, which we're going to do a full spectrum season review in a few weeks once the dust has settled a little bit. So that probably a lot of storylines will come up in that. So we'll just talk about the prelim as it is. Then we'll get into, there's been 2 AFLW games since Friday. One on Friday before our prelim, and then one on Tuesday because the AFL is treating the women like second-class citizens still. So we'll review both of those, as well as, first of all, we're going to talk about some of the list management stuff that's come out in the days since we've finished the season. But first of all, Jamie, thank you for working with me. It's been a wild week for us for a variety of reasons, but we grind on, and we are here, and you are here, and you are feeling a little bit better, and ready to feel worse again by diving back into last week.
The pain of it all. Yeah, g'day. How you going, Dave? And hello, everyone listening and watching, whatever your proclivities are. Yeah, let's get going and open these wounds that have started to close up, but yeah, are still there nonetheless.
I thought you were like, open these funeral proceedings. Like, just really. I
mean,
it is. We are in the
some parallels.
We are in the proceedings of burying our season of 2024 on the men's side. Obviously, the women have still playing plenty, but not the greatest results on their side either. But I'm looking forward to talking about them. There's some interesting stuff going on there. But before we get into prelim, as I said, a lot of list management stuff that's come out in the, since Monday when, meetings started and things going on there. Before we get to the retirements, I think that probably the big one that has been bubbling since probably the start of this year, if you read between the lines at this point, Dan Houston officially requesting a trade, but it's actually not like the toys out of the cot trade request. It's essentially what all of us have thought is going on behind closed doors. It's just out in the open.
Yeah, it's a bit of an odd one.
It is, yeah. I don't mind it. My position's always been that we're in a very strong negotiating position if he does say that he wants to go. And he's basically saying, yeah, I'd like to go back to Vic for family reasons. Every time I think of family reasons now, I just think of the Dan Does Footy podcast and his like family reasons. But if you throw an extra 100K on the contract,
my family wants me to earn more money.
But no, we're not trying to be dismissive of Dan. I love him still, and wish him all the best if he does end up going. But he has also said he's happy to stay at the club. If a deal that doesn't suit the club doesn't get struck, then he loves Port Adelaide and will happily play on here next year. Those are pretty. You don't hear that too often in official kind of. Often it's just I want to go home and that's it. He's added that caveat that he's quite cognizant and understanding of the position that, he's the one that signed that contract just a couple of years ago for which 5 years is relatively long term in AFL world. If you ask Kane Corns, it's the maximum length it should be. So he signed that contract. Things have changed slightly, I guess, in his personal life, and he wants to go. But I think it's a great position for the club to be in. Saw someone, I can't remember who, likened it to a possible Chad Wingard scenario for Port again. Not that one ended. That one was a little bit more murky in the, what happened. Maybe the disconnect with coach and player. But for this one, it looks like it could be one that, it's a player that we've said a few times when talking about replacing him as far as finals go that we love him and you can't replace him, but in the aggregate, the Moneyball kind of thing we talk about sometimes, we do have players we can fill his role with, and then you can send an All-Australian player away and get a really good draft return, which, as we know, we kind of handed over a bit of our draft capital over the last couple of years, getting some big recruits in and some very good ones, obviously. But it's a really good position for the club to be in, I think, with Dan wanting out.
Yeah. I mean, for me, at the start of the season, I would not have guessed by the mid-season break. I think maybe it started to be spoken about. Like at the start of the season, I would not have guessed that this was on the horizon for our year, particularly because he'd been put into a new, fresh leadership group, coming off an All-Australian year. And yeah, just how the years unfolded, it's really odd. He's obviously got a girlfriend. I don't know where she was this time last year or, at the start of this year even. Apparently that's got a little bit to do with it. Who do you believe in these types of things? But the fact of the matter is that, yes, he's requested a trade. And the really weird situation of being like, yeah, but I'm happy to stay too. So like...
I think that speaks to
so
his character a little bit, maybe, hopefully, like that he's understanding of that it's a weird position to possibly put the club in, that they committed to him for 5 years just a couple of years ago. So he's kind of saying, look, if you can do it, do it. But I'm happy to keep repaying the faith you showed in me as well. So I think it's hopefully a good reflection of his character a little bit, that he's kind of handling it the way he is, and maybe just a good testament to the club's kind of management of the players too, maybe as well.
Yeah. I don't think many, if any, players that request to leave have any ill will towards our club. I think that's a marker of a good culture. Like I think everyone that's left Port Adelaide has either not been a required commodity or has left on pretty good terms. And it's not necessarily because they're disenchanted with the club. It's just, the nature of the beast sometimes. And, recent ones like Carl Amon come to mind. And we've spoken about this a little bit when the news came out about Dan Houston. And like, I don't like it now any more than I did when we spoke about it then. Like, I hate losing good players. And not what you were just saying about the type of player that Dan Houston is. Like, I agree with you that as a whole, the attacking halfback flanker is a position that you can cover as a whole, but to his extent, and it showed in the preliminary final which we'll touch on, his skill level can be a match breaker. It can change how you go about your football and your game plan, which is another off the back of the preliminary final. But the difference between having a Dan Houston who can split the middle and not having a Dan Houston is where his value lies across the competition, because our game plan and the way we put it out there on the field on game day was significantly better when he was in the team. And when he was out of the team, it just clearly showed under immense pressure that we couldn't adjust. So he's a very valuable commodity. My heart obviously wants him to stay, but my head says that regardless of the fact that he's happy to stay, which I'm grateful for and want him to, I still just assume that he'll end up in Victoria and we'll end up with a deal that we're happy with. But I'm up for being surprised. Maybe it's a bit of protection for the inevitable, maybe. But with some other moving and shaking in terms of some of our targets, maybe not going to come to fruition. Maybe we do hold a firmer position in keeping him. But I think we all kind of know now that Cripper and Jeff Parker want to get back into this draft. So, yeah, there's only a few ways that you can do that in the position that we're in. One of those being, moving on a player with, who is a high commodity.
Two-time All Australian and heavily under contract is a good place to be. Current two-time All Australian as well. Alongside that,
perfect age as well for any team.
You plug him into any team that's either contending already, like there's the likes of Carlton that is often popping up. Any Victorian team that wants to contend immediately in the next couple of years would be frothing at the idea of getting a kick like Dan Houston's into their team. So that's a good position for us. Obviously, I absolutely agree with you. If keeping him is a realistic option, then you kind of want to. But yeah, if they want to get into the draft and certainly if it helps some machinations in some of the other targets, and a good time to mention that Jack Lukosius has officially declared that he wants to become a Port Adelaide player. As you take a sip from your Charlie Dixon stubby holder, which we'll get to him in a moment, but kind of the the memories. Jack Lukosius is coming in, obviously as a forward, and kind of immediately solves that problem of some of the problem. We'll see how it goes. It's interesting. Jack Lukosius has suddenly become not worthy of AFL lists in the eyes of some certain members of the Adelaide Twitterati on a particular side of.
Well, he was an absolute need, and then he was, all of a sudden not.
He's obviously his freezing out somewhat at GWS Gold Coast was somewhat because they kind of knew he was on his way out or wanting out maybe, and Dimmer was going in a different direction as well. So it's not.
Yeah, it makes it tough.
Yeah,
for a utility like he is that hasn't bedded down a spot.
Mm-hmm. Whereas, and we know Port Adelaide over the last few years have brought in a bunch of different players, whether it be Aaliyah, Jordan Sweet this year, a lot of players that are kind of surplus-ish to requirements at the clubs, and then can come in and become all Australians like Aaliyah did, or just very, very good players with a lot of life left in front of them, like Jordan Sweet is at the moment, and other recruits over the years. I mean, Trent McKenzie, another one that we'll give a nod to in a moment. He was delisted from Gold Coast and ended up playing another 100 game. Was it 100? I can't remember. There's a lot of injuries in there, but it feels like
it wasn't quite that many.
Yeah, but it feels like he was around. He was around.
I think it was about 60.
Yeah, he was around long enough. He could have, if he'd gotten a consistent run at it. But he had some great moments for us. So yeah, Port can grab these, and Jack Lukosius is certainly not a delisted player, worthy player. He's a highly sought after kind of commodity as a young player with an athletic body, as you said, utility ability, but he wants he has that ability to play as a key forward, which we do need some younger key forwards, particularly with Todd Marshall a question mark, Charlie Dixon obviously just retired, Ollie Lord's development and possible targeting from opposite rival clubs as well. Don't know what to make of that. I haven't actually looked into that too much. I just saw tweets in between my long work days the last couple of days. But yeah, Lukosius feels a need. Lukosius feels a need immediately. So I'm quite happy that he's coming over. I know, whatever people say about how good he is, I know that coming into our system, you can change your kind of destiny as a player. As Aaliyah is the one that constantly.
Yeah, I agree.
But there's plenty of other players that have come in and change their kind of, change their forward. I'm stumbling for words. I've had a long work day. Point being, Lukosius can come in here and he wants to be here. Best mates at Connor Rosie, which is fun. He wants to be here. He's coming home, all that stuff. That means a lot. I mean, Jordan Sweet's a prime example of that. Coming to a club he wants to be at, Jordan Sweet, particularly his boyhood club, you can see the passion and the desire he plays with. If Lukosius is coming into a situation that he's like, I want to be here and this is my long-term football home, that can change everything for you compared to being at a club where you're not used exactly how you want to be. You kind of know that you're not in the club knows that you're not in it for the long haul, and there's a little bit of attitude and all that stuff plays a part in how you're used. And so if he comes in here, I'm really excited for that prospect. It's fun to be excited for a good young player coming into the club. Once again, we've had a good run of it the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. We touched on it in our preseason shows, obviously off the back of a decent recruiting haul in the last off season. And yeah, I have immense confidence in A, the list management team, and B, the development coaches and the senior coaches themselves in developing players to be the best that they can be, essentially. Now, that's not judged over 1 year, like a lot of people want to do with certain members of our football club. That's measured over a decent period of time. So, yeah, I 100% agree that while Jack Luko's career thus far has been it's still got question marks over it, to be fair. Settling into Stuart Dew's side. But now, with Damien Hardwick coming in and not exactly knowing where to use him, and Jack, that is, having a bit of a predisposed idea of where he wants to play and thinks he can best affect the team. It's interesting. I think at the start of the negotiations, I think he was a bit similar to Dan Houston in that, or the club and him, it's just like, go see what's out there, but, we'll keep you. And he was happy to stay. But yeah, obviously this all comes up now. And yeah, like coming back home and in a different environment, in a club with a decent culture. And with him in it, we'll probably need to force change, probably for the better in terms of forward movement and our game plan in that regard. But the other thing is a lot gets spoken about us trading away first round draft picks, but like Jack Lukosius is a first round draft pick coming in. So like it all comes out in the wash. Sure, there's been years we haven't. Yeah. And like HORNE-FRANCIS is obviously like that's an obvious one. We traded 2 first round draft picks to get 1, but it's not like we're trading out 2 first round draft picks to get someone who's 28 or 29, 30. These are people who will be with our club for a decent amount of time if all goes well. And touch wood. Yeah, it does. We have hope that they come in and make our club better. And again, another thing we touched on in our preseason shows this year is that the high majority of times that people do come in, they better themselves in a football sense. So, yeah, I'm happy with it. I'm very intrigued to see how the trade unfolds.
Yeah, that'll
because
be
he's still contracted. But then B, I'm very intrigued to see how it all fits in to our puzzle.
Yeah, I think it's 2 years he's contracted for more. So kind of similar situation, not as strong as Dan Houston, but it is still 2 years. So, but his is a little bit different. Is like the Suns kind of have clearly made it known that they were moving in a different direction, whereas we had Dan Houston as a key pillar of our side. He was an All-Australian, so it's 2 very different negotiating positions, which makes hopefully it a little bit better. But we know
go
ahead.
Another thing that we'll touch on in the preliminary final, when it comes down to game plan, our game plan, whether it's to a high extent or a low extent, it did change this year. And the biggest reasons for that were Dan Houston and Kane Farrell. We haven't attacked the corridor with the amount of frequency that we did this year, and that was predicated on the fact that we had 2 fantastic users of the football by foot to do that. Unfortunately, we went back to old habits, but that the value is there. For Dan Houston, just to go back a little bit, but that's
it's chalk and cheese between the 2 situations as far as yeah, what the Suns will still try to pry what they can out of it. That's what you do, and that's what any team should do if you've got a player that you're trying to get away. But yeah, negotiating positions are still very different. Obviously, the big news as far as players that we have currently that are on the way, not in the middle of their stellar careers. One former All Australian in Charlie Dixon. I always like to remind people of that. He is retiring after 221 games, I believe it was in the end. And Trent McKenzie, who I do not have his games number in front of me, I should have, but the news has come thick and fast.
I think it's about 160 odd.
Yeah, I'm glad he got.
I think it's about 100 games at Gold Coast and about 60 games at Port.
Yeah, I'm glad he got to a good 150 career as well, because he's Cannon. Yeah, to start on him, being that we're talking about him, just one of my favourite players to watch, both in his defensive, how much he applied himself as because we picked him up as a delisted free agent or something like that from the Gold Coast.
Yep.
He was, he came in kind of not being guaranteed a spot or anything like that. It's just he came in that 2020 season, especially some of the battles.
Well, we had to bide his time, for a couple of years.
He did, yeah. And then he became a kind of cult hero. I mean, that booming footy of his was a big part of it. But just for me, I mean, loved that. And every time he lined up for goal and kicked one from 60 odd, I lost my shit, and I lost my shit again watching the highlights again that the Port Adelaide club put up the other day. But really, a lot of my memories are just him battling it out far and above beyond what we expected when we picked him up as a defensive player, like part of that defensive unit in those 2 years in 2020, 2021. Between injury, when he was playing well, he was a real key part of what was a really, really good defense at the time too. Loved him, and even I don't know if it was last year or the year before. Now I'm trying to think of my years, but he and Alir kind of played pretty well together from memory, and just he was able to plug in, and just whoever he's playing alongside. A few years back, Tom Jonas is his captain back there, and Cleary as well. Like it just he found
Cleary at the height of
he found his role in there and just played his role, but exceeded his role as well. He was a real good part of some really, really good Port Adelaide defenses, now 3, 4, 5 years ago. But loved his work down there, and obviously the goals were just the chef's kiss on top of it all, because they were
when he found himself up the field a little bit. Yeah.
It's the closest kind of feeling that I've had to Stuart Dew back in the late 90s and into the 2000s.
Yeah,
because he could line up. He was kind of that cult player, and that booming foot of his exceeds almost everyone. I'm trying to just think of players we've had that can just kick from comfortably.
Well, Kane Farrell we have now, but
does he kick quite as far? Like, he has a nice action, but I don't know if he's kicking them from 70.
I'd like to see Kane Farrell really put some decent effort into it. That's the thing, though, is it looks so seamless. You don't know if he is actually putting max effort in, but but Trent McKenzie, we've joked about it this year, whether I can't remember when, but out of that 2017 off-season haul that we brought in, to think that Trent McKenzie would outlast everyone else, at the end of 2017, people would have laughed at you if you said that. But Jack Trengove, Jack Watts, Stephen Motlop, Tommy Rockcliffe, they all came and went, and he's the one that lasted the test of time. Like you said, became a cult hero, because not many people had many high hopes for him. He was maybe seen as a depth player.
Yeah, he's a squad player.
And
one of those guys that might
and then to his credit, if you need, to his credit, he obviously did the hard work behind the scenes. He grew up, he matured, as Ken commented on a lot in those years that he did eventually play, because people are like, oh, Trent McKenzie, he's playing undersized against a lot of opponents, which he did.
Mm-hmm.
But he obviously had the maturity to, defend early against his opponent, use his body, his smarts. He was a very his footy IQ in a defensive sense was pretty high, a lot higher than what a lot of people probably give or gave him credit for. But when you're there and you're watching it, I mean, the sheer fact that he didn't really get beaten a lot and by players who were bigger than him height-wise goes to show that you have to have a little bit of footy IQ to be able to perform in that manner. And yeah, like you said, like 2020 and then the few years after that, like he was part of some solid defensive setups and didn't let himself down, didn't let the team down. And if he did, it wasn't very often. And it may not have been his fault.
He was often one of
from
those ones.
Pressure up the field perspective, which we again talk about a bit too frequently.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later. It was often he'd get caught out. Sometimes those one-on-ones when the ball's gone out of your 50 and then it's your defensive 50 and it comes right back and he's kind of he's getting set. The defense is trying to get set again and it's fuck, we've got to defend again earlier than expected kind of stuff. But yeah, he was. When he was given the opportunity to set himself and he played out of his skin. And as I said on probably Twitter when I posted about it, I just said he's just one of those kind of man. Like I always like to say, comes from Oregon. Like Oregon a few years ago, one of the coaches would talk about men of Oregon, like people that epitomize what Oregon football is. And I do that with Port Adelaide too. I'm like that he was a man of Port Adelaide. Like he epitomized Port Adelaide footy. Play above your station, whatever just put it all out in the field. Like the creed is like exert every effort that you have, every skill that you have, and if you do put all that effort into it, then you'll realize you have more skill and more effort to give than you previously thought you did. So, and he was that. So yeah, a big raise of the glass, and I'll finally pick up my red wine glass and give a little toast to as it disappears with my Zoom background. But, cheers to Cannon. And the reason I've got a red wine open right now is because obviously Charlie Dixon, one of our, a real favourite of the CREEDCAST. We've had some fun with him this year, and obviously some, moments where him being dropped or whatever. But Charlie Dixon's I've been a favourite of mine for a long time. You're obviously, as I mentioned earlier, drinking from the stubby holder, which I have found my stock of them, so I'll find a way to... Are you trying to fuck with me again?
I turned my microphone off to cough. And then I was like, I'm going to hold this up so that people can see who are watching on YouTube. So now that I'm talking and I've got my microphone on, there's big Chuck Dixon there.
Yeah.
And the only canned beverage I had in the fridge were White Claws. So, yeah. It's a bit loosey-goosey in there.
You absolute white girl. It's he's just being a player that immediately as soon as he came in, loved him. There's something of the aura he carries himself with. It's funny seeing the posts and his hairstyles through the years and whatnot. You kind of forget kind of how he looked when he came in, and his look has just evolved as the tattoos have added and the hair has probably gone away a little bit. But he always carried an absolute fear factor as an opposition player. And I think most have had one reply on Twitter today from someone that isn't worth mentioning, but just being kind of negative about him. But speaking of, as Trent McKenzie talking about him leaving it all on the field, Charlie Dixon battled through so many different injuries, and as I think we've talked about at times, he's mentioned his mental health battle through those injuries as well as just mental health in general. He's always been a player that wears his heart in his sleeve, and so he truly put his body and soul on the line for Port Adelaide. And at every beck and call, whether it be over the last few years, he's had to throw his tired, battered, reconstructed body through the ruck and do it pretty well. And then even this year, he stood up with a few game-winning performances. Got a few Brownlow votes the other night, so
deservedly so.
Yeah, and obviously an All-Australian in 2020, which was some of the haters and idiots will say, well, it was a shortened season, but everyone is still playing the same season. So if you're an All-Australian, you're an All-Australian. So Yeah, I think he had
Yeah, it's a
30,
big
I
as
think he had,
nothing argument.
it is, yeah. I think he had 34 goals that year in what was it, 16, 17 games and shortened quarters and all that stuff and really weird situations.
He had a
So
sensational year, and it's no
some of those marks
surprise
he
that it
took
came.
too.
Well, and it came off the back of a full preseason. He wasn't returning from a broken fucking leg, which he's had to do once on top of some other serious injuries to his particularly lower half. And again, a big guy, but
Mhm.
Charlie Dixon, he was perhaps the first kind of big recruit, and it like started that tide turning in South Australia in terms of where players from outside the state were going to start coming. He
Mhm.
was one of the first big recruits, and obviously off the back of Jay Schultz getting on like in the back end of his years, we obviously were thinking, well, shit, like Westhoff turned into that utility. He wasn't the key forward that maybe a lot thought he was going to be in
Mhm.
2007, and then yeah, so then all of a sudden we get this 200 plus centimeter giant who's had a decent start to his career, albeit a bit, up and down at the Gold Coast. But he came in and like you said, he endeared himself to everyone mostly for the way that he performed for our club every time he went out and played. And there's no surprise why he's well loved by the majority of Port Adelaide supporters. And if you don't feel that way as a Port Adelaide supporter, that's your right as a fan.
Mhm.
I, I think you're probably being a bit too critical of him based on your distaste for a game plan that is perhaps centered around
Mhm.
him, which
Mhm.
isn't his fault at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, oh yeah, I love the guy. He's easily one of my favorite players, and
Mhm.
I know he's definitely one of your favorite players. Like I saw him, yeah, break his leg like in 2018 in front of me, and like, and the same with you the next year, like watching him come back through the Magpies and just all the work that he does often on the field for himself and for the team to get better. Like we've mentioned it maybe once in his comeback trail this year. Like we understand that he's not a legendary forward of the sport. Like
Mhm.
we get that. Like he doesn't finish his career with 500 plus goals or whatnot, but he's a steward of the club. He's a cult hero, and he gave 110%. You can't leave a game. He's been well held,
Mhm.
you know, on certain occasions, but at no point in his career did he ever give up
Mhm.
the cause for our football club. And like some of my favorite moments, and some of a lot of people's favorite moments are going to the footy and watching this guy take contested marks, kicking goals, and yeah, like we'll die on the hill that he's a much more accurate kick than a lot of people pay him credit for. And he's just an imposing figure. Like you hear a lot of negative shit in Adelaide, but that's because we've got another fan base to fucking worry about and hear in our ears. But it like a lot of people interstate love Charlie, like whether it be commentators, fans, like because we all understand the like gravitation, or we all understand the impact that a guy like Charlie can make by just simply being on the field.
Mhm.
And when he's up and about at his best, it's entertaining. Like he's objectively one of the best contested marks in the comp over his career, and particularly his career at Port Adelaide. No matter how many times someone wants to say that he looks like Tarzan and plays like Jane, which has been done to death.
God.
It's just objectively wrong.
Yeah.
Like this guy has injured his body repeatedly, and he's objectively one of the best contested marks in the league. So it's just a stupid assessment, and I'm happy to go into that over and over again for Charlie Dixon. Like, yeah, like a couple of beers deep or a few beers deep at the football, you see the long ball go in and him either put up the take it one-handed or just bust through players or hold off a player, and this is at his best, right? Like recency bias would say like none of this shit really happened that often, but it did as a whole. Like it was fantastic. Like I love it. I loved, I sit in the front row of my tier and there's glass paneling because it's the third tier up. And I loved giving that thing a slap, like, or even like a kick, just Charlie. And when he's on, like, and if the delivery is good, he's taking grabs. And you're just like, everyone gets up. Everyone loves to see Charlie Dixon in form, much like everyone likes to see any big forward across the competition. Everyone loves them when they're up and about. But yeah, Charlie Dixon, whether it was his look or just his overall persona, just had that certain like je ne sais quoi that just captured a lot of people in the AFL landscape. I know, like, James Brayshaw and that type of that Triple M side of things. That Charlie is the type of player that you can just kind of hear that Charlie, but then even on the analysis shows, like talking about Charlie at his best, they're just like how good's a big bustling Chuck with his mitts out and making the football, like commentators commenting in game, like just marveling at the fact that he makes a football look like a tic tac, to exaggerate, but like,
oh well, those videos with him
yeah,
and Chad
and
Corns in pre-game, with
yeah,
the
like
one,
just this
hand.
is
Yeah.
that's the cult figure type stuff that we've come to love, and being invested fans in the football club, you understand how much of a like fantastic person, just a beautiful man that he is. And we love the club, therefore we love Charlie Dixon. Like, yeah, the fans across the road, they'll have no fucking idea why we love him as much as we do, but we do. And there's so many reasons I could go on of why I love Charlie Dixon, and I'll really, really miss seeing him representing our club on the field, because, yeah, it's just fantastic to watch in full flight.
Yeah.
Pity that the delivery wasn't better to him overall, but again, whether that's by design or just players taking the easy way out and making him do all the work, we really could have maybe benefited by using him in a bit more of a traditional sense. But he got asked to do a lot, and he did have a lot to battle through body-wise across the journey, and he put it all out there, and I can't expect much more, and I can't thank him much more for that.
Yeah, no, it's beautifully said. Yeah, and I hope we do some kind of thing like lap of honor for him and Mackenzie, and I guess we touch on both.
Funny enough, two Gold Coast, people retiring at Port together.
I said this to my brother last night when I was having a beer with him, because we were chatting footy, and I said we're getting Jack Lukosius, a Gold Coast player, to Port right as we're losing our last two Gold Coast to Port players. So little pathway there, talent pathway. But yeah, no, he's just I hope he's not lost to, because not getting into any of the, but just there's there's whispers on socials or whatever, and not that I've looked into it that much, but just whether he would have liked to have played on, but has kind of,
he just can't.
Yeah.
Like, he made the right call, in my opinion. As much as I love him, a lot of people said that he, dragged himself through glass a little bit to, get it this far in the
Bruce
season.
Willis at the end of Die Hard, like just walking through glass with
yeah, just yeah, like it's time. It's time. He yeah,
Yeah.
he did enough. He did enough, and unfortunately joins a list
Real
too
like
long of
that'll do, pig. Like just you've done it. You've had
yeah,
your
yeah,
best.
yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, oh, absolutely. Like you can't ask for much more.
Yeah.
Like you said, he every time he went out there, he put it all out there.
Mm.
And yeah, like I was just about to say, he unfortunately joins a list too long of Port Adelaide players who retire without winning a premiership.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because yeah, it's players like him that, yeah, as fans, you deserve one just for the sheer amount of fucking effort that you've put in over the journey.
Yeah, geez, I would have launched out of my seat if I could have been at the MCG when his name was rung out to said out loud for the medal, but it won't be. I guess the last one to just touch on that isn't resolved at all, but just I think I saw it was I don't know if it was a Josh Money tweet or someone of that ilk said that Boak.
Careful.
Yeah, yeah. So I haven't had like I said to you off air. I don't know if I've had like an 11-hour workday today, so I've only just seen snippets. But
Yeah, you've been busy.
I had your tweet got pushed to my phone. Like this person said something interesting. I'm like, what's Jamie doing? And, but I think it's been intimate. Whether something has happened since, I think I saw something that Boak has been. It's been intimated that the club has said it's in your court. We're happy for you to continue. Quick thoughts on that? I feel like I know where you're at with him, but just one for the people of the pod, your thoughts there.
Yeah, he deserves to go on again. But as a club, we need to look at life without Travis Boak. Therefore, if he does continue next year, which he deserves to do, I think we need to play with the idea of managing him through the season or potentially using him as the sub a bit more. Because yeah, we like there's signs, the signs have been there for the last 2 years, and he's played, and the club acknowledges that, and a lot of other people acknowledge that this year is probably better than last year. I think his best games last year will probably be better than his best games this year, but he's had a much more consistent season this year, and contributed in some important moments. So yeah, he deserves to go on, but yeah, we need to be realistic about it all and where we're going long term.
Yeah, that's probably where I stand as well. I think if he feels fit and that he can provide a similar level, maybe as a sub or whatever, then yeah, you keep him. You always keep a player like that around if he's, and we know his fitness standards and the standards he puts on himself are like beyond elite. Like whatever he's a madman in that way, in the best possible way. So yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think that's about it on that front. We've done plenty there, and we should just rip the band-aid off and
Soldo.
yeah. Oh yeah, Soldo. Yeah, I guess there was proof of life at least that he's there. Like he's still around because he's requested the trade. So
He exists.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
Look,
Yeah.
I don't really hold anything against him. I completely understand it. Like,
Yeah.
and this was the point of curiosity in the preseason was, yeah, we already kind of knew the value that Dante Visentini held at the end of 2023.
Mhm.
But then we went and got two ruckmen in the trade period, and yeah, as the start of this season unfolded, yeah, Soldo was the number one, and Sweet had to do his time. Although Sweet wanted to come over and be a number one ruckman, so it was always going to be interesting how that relationship unfolded, or that position unfolded. But unfortunately, and so best case scenario was that Soldo was going to be the number one for the whole year. Sweet would get his chances here and there, but Sweet coming back home to his boyhood club, we were a better chance of keeping the three, including Dante, if Soldo stayed as the number one. Now, that didn't happen. He got injured, and unfortunately, Jordan Sweet just went on a huge upward trajectory in the time that he spent as a ruck. And you sit there and go, like, things have changed. Like, sorry. And he goes, well, I want to be number one. And for me, I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't want to be number two at Richmond. That's why he came here. Just through circumstance, you would now be starting as with competition for the number two spot at the start of season 2025. Because in my mind, you absolutely have to stick with Jordan Sweet as the number one from here on out. Like, yeah, it's just one of those situations that a bit unfortunate, but I totally get it. And hopefully we can facilitate a trade that benefits us ultimately. Yeah. I hold no ill will. There's a lot of bullshit about like his girlfriend and all that crap. Like, it's pure and simple. He wants to be a number one ruckman, and where he was going to get that, he's not going to get that now. So he needs to do what's best for him, and I totally understand that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. It's all fun and games to, for the speculators on social media that love to do the things with it. Like, if a player's got a girlfriend that's so high profile, like Soldo's was, but they're happy and they want to do what they want to do and go back to Melbourne, then that's their proclivity to do that again.
Yeah, and like there's a bit of I've seen a bit of the opinion where it's like, oh, he doesn't want to fight for the number one spot, and I don't agree with that.
Where's the fight
anger? Well, my opinion is if he wanted to fight for the number one spot, he would have stayed at Richmond and he would have never come here. Like, he doesn't want to fight for number one spot. He wants to be the number one.
He did come in with a fight for it. Ostensibly, like, there was Sweet was
somewhat.
Soldo was coming in as the presumed number one, but they still gave them a shot, and then he won it in preseason, but Sweet just stayed developing and then got his chance. So yeah, he came in kind of knowing he had a probably front row seat for it, but it wasn't a foregone conclusion. I don't think. I never saw it as that as such. I know that you watched more of preseason than I was able to, and your view at the start of the season was he was probably the number one. And to be fair, the club saw it that way too, and we were all pretty happy with how he started. To be fair, so
he started really well. Yeah.
He was kicking goals and playing pretty well in his ruck role. But it's just swings and roundabouts of footy life. It's injuries can change careers for good and bad. Sweet's career,
and then Dante Vicentini, arguably one of the best ruckmen this season in the SANFL. So, absolutely, when that player is a draftee, you absolutely have to shift focus and nurture him because, developing your own ruckman, is tough. And we look to be on a good one with Dante Vicentini. So, I'm more than happy for him to be the number two next season and get a lot more chances. Just unfortunate for Soldo.
But he is good enough and got the body enough and got a little bit of there's enough knowledge and video of him that he will get. I think it's St Kilda. I think is the one that has popped up as his. I don't know if it's his preferred destination or the one that people are speculating at, but he'll find himself a role somewhere. So it's certainly not career over or anything like that. It just hasn't worked out at Port Adelaide, and that's footy sometimes. So good way to just side note, because I was about to get into the prelim and I'm like, oh, good, another one to talk about and distract myself before we have to get to the prelim. But no, we do have to talk about the preliminary final, unfortunately. As I said, we won't get too much into the nitty gritty of a lot of the other stuff. We'll just talk about the game a bit and then get into our segments and whatnot, because we want to get through a bit of the women's stuff as well. no previews to do today, apart from briefly touch on the fact that the women play at Alberton on a Sunday afternoon. Again, great fixturing. But preliminary final on Friday night, obviously. Port Adelaide went down 8 goals, 11-59, just not enough to Sydney's 14-11-95. A great start with the Burgoyne goal, obviously off Nick Blakey, the Lizard, just giving a little bit of I think they called it blocking. I think I was just talking that was a good body check off the ball, but it was a good start.
But it was off the ball.
Yeah, well off the ball.
So it's a free kick.
Oh,
Way too much conjecture
that's what I mean.
for that one.
No, that's what I mean. Like, it was a body. Like, people say call it blocking. I was like, that's a proper check. Like, you're doing that's a hockey
whatever
move.
it is.
That's a hockey move.
Yeah. You can't
that's
do
when
it.
a player's come past, you're doing you can't do it. Great set shot from Burgoyne, whose goal kicking has improved across the set. I mean, it's a small
in the
sample
finals.
size.
Yeah.
But I mean, by the way, I'm jumping forward just for a moment, but I didn't put it as a Sweeney because I was like, it's a goal kicking action. I can't do it. But the slow motion of his follow through for that first goal just gave me all the fuzzies. I was just like, God, that's beautiful. And he's matured so much over that. But a great start aside. And then I think we had a bit of the first 5 minutes, but unfortunately, I think it was a Boak turnover, one of Boak's turnovers, possibly, or it was another. It was for the first goal.
Ended up in Jake Lloyd. Yeah.
And then it kind of just turned after that. Not that it was a terrible deficit at quarter time. It really only got out of control in the latter stages of the second quarter, but ultimately Sydney go on to win by 6 goals, and really it was kind of felt. It's never over at halftime, but it just felt over. This is the way Sydney started playing. Once they got a roll on the ball, they just held possession well. The possession numbers are really stark. For teams that, I mean, we had a -14 difference to Sydney across the season, but in this game in particular, it was -75. I'm doing quick math right now. So they had a sheer amount more of the ball disposals wise. Inside 50s were closer, but still just it's all the numbers. Disposal efficiency was quite high. Sydney were just over three out of every 4 disposals was an efficient disposal, which is just incredible. Ours was right on our season average of 71.7 basically in the game. But just some of the telling statistics were just the marks. They took 61 more marks than us, 6 more of those inside 50, 7 more contested, but just the uncontested marks around the field overall. To take 61 more marks in a game and have 75 more possessions, you're just not winning a game of football if that's the deficit.
No.
Like just those 2 numbers alone, there's a few other metrics that were okay, and we won our tackles inside 50, which is always a barometer of us playing decent if we're, at forward 50 pressure. But if you're not getting enough of the ball around the field, particularly on the SCG, you're just not going to win the game.
Yeah. I was going to talk about the disposal efficiency as a whole because, when you're looking at it, and if you put the game in the back of your mind, you go, oh, okay, well, we did as well as we could have in that regard, but Sydney just played above themselves. But when you watch the game, their disposal efficiency was so high because they were afforded so much space for the whole 4 quarters. And it's very easy to use the ball efficiently when you don't have that immediate or perceived pressure. And you're just allowed to waltz it up and down the field, which we saw way too many times, especially for a final. Disposals, uncontested possessions, uncontested marks, just like what you said. It all goes in together, and it's just unacceptable in a preliminary final. But unfortunately, we fell into a lot of old bad habits, and the games that we have done that this season, we've generally paid more heavily than the 6-goal margin.
Yeah.
But so just to kind of go back on the Dan Houston chat,
I was just thinking about it just as you were talking. So good to go there.
Yeah, whether you like, so the most critical of people would have you think that we have had one game plan for 12 years and that's it. That is wrong. It's just ridiculous. No AFL club has had one game plan for that amount of time.
Mm.
And so I mentioned that there are elements of game plans, and game plans transition over time. Like
It's just
we've
it's evolution.
it's evolution.
Yeah.
I mean, I've mentioned a couple of times that we were one of the teams that pioneered the front half game, and I know, there's a lot of detractors to it, and for the objective reasons that it creates a congested forward line, I get all that. But that didn't come into the league until like 2018, 2019. So therefore, we had a different game plan before that, and we have had different game plans. Yes, having Charlie Dixon there has created an obvious, if you're in doubt, bomb it to Charlie. If you're not in doubt, half the time bomb it to Charlie. I get all that too. But something that was evident from the preseason matches this year, and then throughout the season, particularly in our best games of football that we've played, we've dominated the corridor. We were the number one corridor team across the whole season. We haven't done that before. Dan Houston and Kane Farrell were the main proponents of us getting it into the corridor because they could put the football on a dime. Dan Houston to the highest standard. He's been Sweeneyed several times this year. We've spoken about, it's been commentated just how much he's taken the piss out of opposition fans with how he can, put a 5-cent piece up the field and he could hit it. They weren't there. And due to a multitude of factors, maybe not a multitude, it sounds like the game was just insurmountable. Insurmountable. The game was there to be taken, but unfortunately, and we thought we could cover those players, but ultimately I was wrong because we couldn't replace that direct access to the center, to the corridor. And when we were using the corridor throughout the year, we weren't bombing it long. We were actually hitting up much more targets because it's much easier to when you're coming through the guts of the ground and players are, one-on-ones. You've got a full view of the 50 and the players within.
And then you've got like Travis Boak. I mean, not to I don't want to shit on him too much, but he got shit on a little bit in the game, obviously by fans because of his a couple of crucial turnovers that directly resulted in goals. He kind of took marks and took possession of the ball in positions that sometimes Dan Houston or Kane Farrell would in the defensive 50 to rebound out. And
that's
he would.
That thought has been running. He shouldn't be the one attacking the corridor. He should be the one in the second or third position along that possession along that chain.
Yeah, he should be a handball receive or something in there, but he shouldn't be the one distributing inside into the corridor. That's not true.
Yeah, he's the one handing it to a Dan Houston or a Kane Farrell because a hard worker. He's running up and down the field all game. But unfortunately, Ryan Burton, who, I mean, his disposal efficiency ended up pretty good. But, there's that one that just just sat up in the air for way too long. And you just go, if that was Dan Houston or even Kane Farrell, like that's hitting someone on their chest and no doubt about it. And it all just unraveled from there. And for whatever reason, after Geelong, we went, oh, fuck, we don't have the players to play that style. So then against Hawthorn, we changed it, and it was noted that we changed it, and it obviously worked to our benefit. So for whatever reason, they decided to go, we've got Ryan Burton back. Let's attack the corridor again. And and then on top of that, to compound it, what worked for us when we played Sydney at Adelaide Oval we did it again. And of course they were going to react to it.
Yeah.
And again,
No,
it was noted, excuse me, in the aftermath of that 100+ point win, that we were giving them the wings because we knew they wouldn't take them. And they fell into that trap. Now, we didn't react to it, and the coaching staff and the leaders on the ground should take the criticism that comes from that. We allowed them to waltz the ball from back 50 to forward 50 with ease way too many times. We needed to react to that, and we needed to change and quite simply go back to the game plan that won us the game and should have won us the game by more against Hawthorn.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point bringing up the Hawthorn because it was lauded throughout the week in between the two games that we did the adjustment to go around the wing and be more careful with possession and not move it quite as quick through the corridor and bite things off. And I thought that was one of the reasons I was confident going into the Sydney game. I was like, we're showing abilities to, move magnets and not just move magnets, but move, the cerebral part of the game as far as how we play football itself on the field. Like that Hawthorn game was it was one of those like one step forwards, and then the next week we take 2 steps back. Fort Adelaide things that we do when you watch the Sydney game go down the way it did, because it was just like, oh no, we're going to go corridor again because we've got Burton back, and then it just doesn't work, and then we don't have the plan B within the game. But and then Sydney probably, I mean, it's one of those things I do, we don't talk about the opposition too often, and I won't do it too much, but I'll give credit to Sydney. They turned up on the night too. Like one of the big things we were like, they've been slow starters all year. They weren't slow starters, maybe the first 5 minutes, but once they got a sniff from the first Travis Spoke turnover, they took it and ran with it, which is really, impressive on their end. And they just, who knows what happens this weekend where, I don't believe in.
Well, and at halftime, the scoring shots were the same. But 9 goals won compared to 4 goals 6.
Yeah.
Just kills you. Now,
that does sometimes come I'm trying to think. It's a little bit of that is reflective of how the game is played, though. Like we weren't.
Oh, they were getting such good looks at it, so it's no
Yeah.
surprise why they were kicking so
They did
accurately.
finish a few big, nice kicks from 50 kind of stuff as well, which just is kind of that cherry on top.
Yeah.
Because you
And then
miss a couple of those, maybe it's a lot closer.
Well, that's exactly right. And then they saved their poor kicking. They kicked 5 goals 10 in the second half, but to our 4 goals 5. So
they shade the second half, but not quite. It's really just that last 10 to 15 minutes in the second quarter is really kind of, and then the start of the second half as well. I think they kicked one within a minute there as well, and it just.
Well, that's the thing,
they pick their times well too to kind of just keep rest momentum and then keep it as well.
Oh, absolutely. We kicked back-to-back goals once in the game, and that was in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
like when the game was done. Like they didn't allow us, and we didn't allow ourselves. Like, I pay a lot of credit to Sydney. They turned up. Their good players played well. They had an even contribution, but we just allowed them. We afforded them so many luxuries that we shouldn't have. And like I put on Twitter that while the game hadn't been going our way in the first half, the lead was not. We could chase it down. It's not insurmountable, is what I said on Twitter. And because in my dad's living room, where me, my old man, and my brothers were all watching it, and my brother's girlfriend Claudia, we're all kind of going, well, just think of the Carlton game at Marvel Stadium. 25 points at halftime. That Carlton had a fantastic second quarter, but we were able to wrestle the momentum back and then, beat them convincingly in the end. So that's kind of what the chat around our living room was. It's like, just summon that right now and we'll be in with a shot. And then in the first minute, Chad Warner kicks a goal in the third quarter. And yeah, it pushes it back out above 30 points. And yeah, so just so many missteps along the way. Like I said, so many bad habits came to the fore at a time where we desperately didn't need them to. And aided by, yeah, some external factors, which I'll touch on, but not now. I think there's still some discussion about game plan, like how we performed and how Sydney performed before we can get to that. But yeah, just for me, just watching it all unfold, turnovers, bombing it high and long repeatedly over and over and over again. Those are some bad habits that just came about because we weren't up to it. And look, I think a fair assessment off the back of the game too is that Sydney looked really refreshed. And at times, particularly in those middle quarters, we looked flat on our feet in some efforts and some chases. Now, whether that's because you're turning it over and you look bad, or whether we were just short of a gallop, I don't know. But I don't think I'd be alone in saying that, like, I could see some players looked fucking a bit flat-footed at times, and yeah.
I guess you could say on the other side of the final spectrum is, Brisbane have won 3 straight to get through to the grand final, so it's tiredness. It genuinely is. Like, Sydney were far fresher, and it made they looked just primed and ready and mentally ready and physically ready for the moment. And yeah, it kind of proved the old adage that doesn't matter what's happened previous. There was a lot of historical things coming up. Obviously, the fact they hadn't won, fucking Koshy, since Obama was president or whatever he fucking said, which immediately, it's just, as soon as he put that one out there, I was just like, nah, this is not good. And then obviously the 112-point win earlier in the year, it just shows that finals footy is a completely different beast. It's about who turns up on the day. It's a good thing for us going forward too, but it's just to know that you just need to turn up on the day. But it is frustrating that we repeatedly do not turn up on preliminary final day. For the last couple, I will say, Hawthorn 2014 and Richmond 2020, I think we turned up pretty well and just, we're on the wrong side.
2 dynasty teams.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I can give you excuses.
Yeah, we have them plenty full. We are poor fans. But yeah, no, it's running into a couple of buzzsaws doesn't help. But yeah, the last couple of preliminary finals have just been we've looked completely out of our depth, and it's unfortunate. This one obviously wasn't quite as bad and we were away, and Sydney have been the form side of the competition, but it just it goes to show that history, even very recent history, like 112-point win, just doesn't matter. You've got to turn up on the day, and as you said, as you touched on earlier on, likely Houston missing. There is some big changes to our side from that win over Sydney. Obviously, Houston was in that game. Farrell was as well, and that's key pillars in that, what our game plan was this year. And you certainly you do know, as much as we wanted to cover for them, and we think, particularly with Houston likely on the out, we think we can cover for them going forward overall as far as the game plan goes. This year we were playing with them as a key focal point of our game plan. So with them missing, unfortunately, it did become a problem in this game. Absolutely. Burton, I think, has filled in admirably since he's come back in. I think he's been reasonable, but he just doesn't, like, Houston's kick is so good. Clearly one of the it was number 1 rated in the comp, I think. As you said, put it on a fucking, put it on a fly's ass from 50 meters, he'll do it. Whatever your colloquialism it will be, he will do it. We sorely missed it. As much as some of the players, like, Burgoyne again, I think had a good game. And Burton was applying himself as well as he could. You just can't replace guys that have just that touch. Touch is, you can teach a lot of things in footy. touch is just something you can't. It's just
Yeah,
something you
yeah.
have.
Houston and Farrell wouldn't have been going into this final series with pressure on their place, therefore their performance. A guy like Ryan Burton, Josh Sin, who I don't think let himself down, but they have the pressure of performance and the pressure of, well, more so at the start of the final series, like, oh,
even just
I haven't been playing a lot this year. Like,
there's an anxiety that comes with that. Like, can I do this in the moment? Whereas Houston just, whenever he gets the ball in hand, he's just like, yeah, I can. This is what I do. It's not like, can I do this? It's like, this is what I do. This is who I am. Like, what is that bowling video where that guy hits the straight? He's like, who you think you are? I am. Like, just like that's Houston. Like,
that's one of the best videos ever.
It's fucking fantastic. That's Houston. Like, he's that guy.
And I want to watch that.
Yeah.
Who do you think you are? I am.
I love that it's bowling as well. Like, of all things, it's
yeah,
just like,
yeah, it definitely. It's very Big Lebowski, like just units.
Over the line.
Just because, weird units, but like, yeah. When you look at things, so we make it to a preliminary. We finish second on the ladder. We make it to a preliminary final. But when you cast your mind back to the start of the season, we obviously had high hopes for the side. I expected us to challenge for top 4, and we laughed at the fact that people in the media and some professionals had us either slipping to the bottom half of the 8 or even missing the 8 this season. So
by and large, and like, this is just, sorry to interject, but it was more or less, I feel like it was at least 50-50 that the Crows might finish above us. Like, that was a thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. So there's obviously the discourse about, oh, have we overachieved? Haven't we have we over, under? Have we got, like, I understand all that chatter. And the thing is that when you put it up against the fact that a lot of people didn't expect us to get anywhere near where we did this season, you could say that we overachieved. But the problem is that as the season unfolds, your expectations change. So while I understand that we probably did overachieve in the context of things, when you consider the fact that going into the final series, we were one of the youngest, least experienced final sides in the final series. And then in particular on Friday night in the preliminary final, like, Sydney were a much battle-hardened team. They had more experience on their side, both holistically and finals. Like, it's hard to say whether we overachieved or whether we didn't, because like, I was pumped on Friday night. I was pumped for the whole week, to be honest. Like, I was a nervous fucking wreck going into Geelong. I was very ambivalent going into Hawthorn, as we've spoken about already. But I was pumped. I was obviously concerned at how much talk was around, like, the record against Sydney, the last time we played them, all of that shit. Like, that scared me to an extent. But I was pumped because the reason why we did have that record is because we've matched up well against Sydney. And we spoke about this in our preview. Like, best 22 against their best 22. Like, we match up well, but our team had to play at their best, and they didn't. With all of that said, though, like, expected score was 90 to 76. Like,
I'd completely blanked on checking that. I'm glad you brought that up. That's really good that's really interesting to hear.
Well, and so if that was the end score, you go, oh, fucking hell, we were that close again. But we gutsed it out. And, like, I sit back and go, well, if Travis Boak didn't turn it over 4 times for 4 goals, like, we're much closer to that. A margin, not score, obviously.
Yes,
and you just give yourself that much of a better shot, but we just continually shot ourselves in the foot. And whether it's because of our experience as a whole, whether it's because of game plan, like, I don't know. But like any extreme points of contention, the truth generally lies somewhere in the middle. And like, unfortunately, yeah, I'm just so disappointed because it was an opportunity they got gone begging, and I was so pumped. I thought we had a really good shot, and I really, really want to fucking go to Melbourne and watch my team play in a grand
I was
final.
so
And
excited. I
I,
was
along, yeah,
just like signing
yeah.
up for the fucking, you and I both signed up for the ballot with our priority one memberships. And I was just keen. I was like, yes, take my 500 fucking dollars out of my account on Saturday. You fuckers, like, get me that, send me that ticket. But yeah, once again, we just don't quite make it. Um, yeah, I
Mm.
was, you just mentioned turnovers. It's just like, we always talk about the metrics that you see as an average, and then you have to flip them. And Sydney flipped that on us. Like, they averaged two more turnovers a game than us on the year. We had eight more in this game, so that's a -10 flip based on pre-game averages versus what actually happened. So yeah,
It's
just
just
all
how critical, like, and the critical positions that they were turned over. Like,
yeah,
what was
yeah.
it? I mean, they scored
That's even
14
more so.
goals.
Yeah,
Yeah, they scored 14 goals for the game, and I think 11 or 12 of them came directly from turnovers. Like, you cancel that or you halve it to be realistic,
yeah,
and the game's a lot more competitive. So yeah, whether we bombed it to fucking Charlie or an Asava or whatever, the game was lost in turnover, much like the
mm,
Gold Coast game. It was very similar, like score source. Um, and after the Gold Coast game, we're just kind of sitting there going, like, that surely can't fucking happen again.
mm,
Unfortunately, it did in a preliminary final. And yeah, we're left to pick up the pieces because, yeah, some people would say, oh, Sydney should have beat you by 10 goals. But also, there's enough evidence to say that we could have, like, we should have had it a lot closer and it should have been a lot more of a challenge.
Well,
The
Sydney had to
clearance
be.
numbers, they've been spoken about, the
Mm,
tackling. Like, there's so many signs to say that we could have, should have put in a lot better effort and made it a lot closer game. But unfortunately, as much hard work you do in one area, if you're not capitalizing and then you just hand the ball straight back to them in goal kicking scenarios, you can't win games of football. It's like finals or not. Like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, just really disappointing as a whole. And I've been flat. I'm sure a lot of people are.
hmm,
Like, I've been flat for the whole week. Obviously, sickness just to compound that a little bit too.
yeah,
Um, yeah, yeah, so flat. Like, we joked because of like having to delay the episode and like being a bit. I joked about being a bit delayed on my note taking, and
yeah,
you said you were there to give me an out and say that I was sick. But like I said to you, like, had we won, this episode would have been recorded Sunday morning probably or something like
yeah.
that. Like,
Yeah, we would have
um,
been recording it as we were booking our accommodations in
yeah,
Melbourne or something like that. Yeah.
yeah, I've been dragging my heels so much this week. Obviously avoiding as much footy content and just, yeah, everything else. It's just a really,
Yeah, I was at my brother's last
really
night.
shit time of the year when you're that close, and yeah,
Yeah.
you just fail again.
Yeah, I was at my brother's last night. He's like, "You listen to Dylan Friends this week?" I was like, "I've never listened to fuck all footy this week. I am not listening to anything. The only thing footy I've taken in was literally watching the ladies play against Richmond on Tuesday evening when once we had to put pause on that recording that night. That's literally the only footy content I've taken in. I've listened to nothing, and I will listen to nothing. I said to you, yeah, you're saying flat. I once again drove home in silence the entire drive
Charlotte, yeah.
back to the
Yeah.
Barossa from Port Adelaide on Saturday, just driving home in silence. Stopped at JB Hi-Fi, did some retail therapy. Um, that kind of stuff. But otherwise, yeah, the drive was silence. Yeah, absolutely flat. Did you have anything else in particular on the game before we get to our segments? The final segments for this year, unfortunately, I was hoping we'd get to one more, but it hasn't happened. But yeah.
Look, I do want to touch on the umpiring in this game
Oh,
as
fuck
a
me.
whole. Yeah, sorry to open up more wounds, but I will preface it by saying, and I put this out on Twitter as a broad statement, but if the AFL can sit back and say that AFL umpiring is as good as it's ever been, or however you want to paraphrase it, if they can sit back and say that 4 umpires works, Friday night would go the complete opposite way to that sentiment completely. It was a fucking shambles on both sides. Now, if I'm putting my Port Adelaide glasses on, we kicked the first goal of the game, and then, yeah, like you said, we turned the ball over. Jake Lloyd got a goal. Joel Amati got the next shot on goal. I can't remember that piece of play. I'm sure it was a pretty good piece of play. So then you're going, they're 6 points up, but it's halfway through the first quarter. We just need to wrestle back momentum. Hayden McLean fucking takes on, was it Jace Burgoyne? I can't remember who it was. Jace Burgoyne. Another player comes in. He drops a fucking ball. Yep. I'm pretty sure we'd already given up a holding the ball for a kick for a fairly fucking ticky touchwood situation that totally gets blanked in that situation. The ball ends up falling out to Logan McDonald, who snaps their 3rd goal in a row. So momentum's completely on their fucking side after we'd kicked the first goal early and we'd held sway for most of the first half of that first quarter. And all of a sudden it's a 2-goal margin. And yeah, we get a return goal and that's great. But that return goal potentially should have been putting us back in the lead, hypothetically.
Or just
now, that's just one.
Yeah.
That's just one small snippet. The fact of the matter is that you're getting 4 different fucking calls on any one game. And like, that's just a Port Adelaide perspective. There were moments throughout the game where we were the beneficiaries of some inconsistencies, and there was inconsistencies for the whole night. So no matter what side of the fence you were on, and more so our side of the fence, you're just compounding the frustration because not only can your team not get back in the game, you've got 4 different adjudications of this fucking rule book of interpretations, which is a fucking joke. Like Asaba Radaglia having nowhere to go, spinning around with the ball in his hand and it being out of bounds and then getting called insufficient intent. Like there was so many instances. Like I obviously don't remember any of the Sydney side of it, but apart from the fact that I do know that there are inconsistencies on both sides throughout the night. And for a preliminary final, that is fucking pathetic. Like this, again, this is a professional competition, everyone. And those were 4 of the best 8 umpires in that competition, according to the AFL, because they were officiating a preliminary final. You can't fucking have that. Like, Tom Papley gets the ball on the ground, basically drops the ball to drive his head into Ollie Wines' arm, and I think it was the most senior of all these umpires, pays a free kick straight in front of goal. Like, again, biased Port Adelaide assessments because I obviously remember them. But like, again, when you marry up the fact that expected score says the margin should be that, and then for all our bad football, there was a lot of hard work that ultimately hard work didn't get rewarded. Momentum went against us from like forces outside of our control. Like, how the fuck are you supposed to play a competitive game of football when these guys don't even know or can't even get on the same page of how they want to officiate a fucking game, let alone a preliminary final? It's just fucking ridiculous. And on top of all the other frustrations to do with my side not being able to get into another grand final, after the game, you're left to pick up the pieces of what was a terrible, terrible officiating performance on the night by the umpiring department. And much like any criticisms of the umpires,
like that Hawthorn game was pretty badly officiated, but we got over the line. But that's 2 in a row of pretty bad games that almost cost us. I mean, one did cost us.
I can't believe it.
I won't say that it cost us. Like, Sydney was still really good. So, and as you said, it went both ways. My personal Instagram. I had a Tom Papley is a C-bomb on there, like in my stories, which I think you probably saw. I was in a space on Friday night. I think.
Yeah. And Papley's not the kind of guy you want to just like give momentum to. Like he lives for the moment, and like of course he's gonna soak it all up. Like I'm sure there's things that are people listening or watching that'll come to mind, but like the AFL has got this completely wrong. And like I don't even necessarily disagree with having 4 umpires on the field, but their positioning and how they're instructed to position themselves is fucking atrocious. They're still caught out not being able to see the play.
Yeah.
Because they're hell-bent on having 2 umpires in each 50 and then two central umpires who have no fucking idea how to set up. It's just a shambles. So there was instances of high contact or just like handballs, like high contact not being adjudicated properly because they're on the wrong side of the fucking contest, and them not being able to see handballs because they're on the wrong side of the contest. And more often than not, you see them paid holding the ball when the player's actually got a fucking handball out. Problem is the umpire's looking at their back, so they have no idea, and in essence are guessing because it looks like it's holding the ball.
Yeah.
It was just terrible. Franked by the fact that it was a preliminary final, and that's why I'm so fucking annoyed.
Yeah, because it happens in, I bring it back to different sports I watch, but, football in America, like they have crews, like you have, like each crew works together week to week. Like you have, you have your central field umpires, you have your line judges, and they all work together week to week. And then, when it comes to playoffs, then they get the best of each crew together and they make the best of the best, so to speak. But yeah, you'd think you'd have umpires with synergy or something like that. And maybe they do, or maybe they think they do. I don't know. But I will say it does speak to some of the things we talked about earlier in the year when the holding the ball adjudication tweak, or for lack of a better term, came up. Because that Jace Burgoyne
you've just reminded me of something.
Yeah, that Jace Burgoyne one you brought up was one of those ones that was meant to be, was literally an example. That was
that in the video package. That's
textbook
what
example.
But they gave so many for less in the weeks immediately succeeding that package came out.
And even right up to the end of the season, I was seeing ones I was like, that's a tweak handball right there, that tweak holding the ball right there. And then you see those ones go in the finals and you go, well, you just do the, Jonah Hill, like, fuck me, right? Like, what am I meant to do here at this point? Like, if this is just, I'm told this as a fan, but then that is still let go. Like, I just don't know what to do. This is why fans get frustrated. This is why, all their stuff about umpire respect and stuff, which I absolutely get. Like, don't be the douchebag parents and stuff that do silly things on the sidelines of country footy games. But at the professional level, we as fans pay thousands of dollars a year membership, hundreds to thousands of dollars a year on memberships, all that stuff. We do deserve better, and we do deserve to be a little bit incredulous at what we see, as you've well articulated in the last 5 minutes. We deserve to have that criticism, and they deserve to hear that criticism, because this isn't country footy. This is always the thing that does my head in too. This isn't country footy. This is professional football sport that we pay a shitload of money for as fans.
This is the elite level.
Yeah. I could take the thousands of dollars, but by the time I put memberships, merchandise, beer, possible therapy, possible therapy in the future into Port Adelaide. If I didn't do that because it was country footy, then I'd be so much better off financially. But I do it, so I deserve to criticize, and you and I deserve, and everyone deserves to criticize, and we deserve to have answers, and better answers than we get from the AFL about how AFL umpiring is going at the moment. Sydney were going to win that game either way, but as you said, well, it could have been closer, and then you don't know what's going to happen at that point.
Exactly right.
The expected score is an interesting thing I'm glad you brought that up, because I had completely blanked on looking that up. So, yeah.
Not only did we turn it over in compromising positions, we were also on the end of adjudications in compromising positions as well. That doesn't help.
Yeah.
Like so I mentioned you reminded me of something, and that's about holding the ball. And we've touched on it earlier in the season, where we were more thinking about when a player gets kind of, they rotate 360 in a tackle, and we're both kind of like, well, has the player actually performed and performed a tackle? Have they actually stuck a tackle for therefore to be holding the ball? Excuse me. So then there was a couple more instances on Friday night where I don't believe the Sydney player effectively stuck the tackle that was inevitably rewarded for holding the ball. Holding the ball, in my opinion, has to come off the back of a tackle. You can't just touch a player or attempt to tackle, it get broken, and the player fumble the ball after the fact and call that holding the ball. That's not holding the ball. That's an attempted tackle, and then it's a fumble. Two separate things.
Yeah.
That happened at least twice. And again, compromising for us and bias assessment from me, because this, like, quite frankly, I don't give a fuck what Sydney should or shouldn't have got. I would acknowledge, I've already acknowledged several times that it was bullshit across the board, but so I have obviously strong opinions on this topic. The first thing that, and I was going to say earlier, like in any criticism of the umpiring, it all can't be put on the umpires on the night, because it's the AFL's problem that they've created.
They keep adding tweaks and stuff, like, again, bringing back to like other sports. Soccer is an interesting,
a lot of other sports.
Yeah, but the NFL has had issues with how they interpret catches and whatnot in American football, but they've tightened up, and they do react a lot quicker, and they just, no other sport. Handball adjudication in soccer has been an interesting one over the last 4 years, but they just change it once a year at least. They don't change it mid-season or anything like that. And again, it's like such a major thing, like handball is such a major thing. It's like, it's just holding the ball and things like that. It's just, it's such an a unique AFL thing to be changing things year to year, and then deciding mid-year to just tweak them and once again. And for things that I don't think were a problem, like, I didn't have much, like, I just think the AFL is more athletic than it ever has been. So holding the ball has just got to be kind of evolve with that. But some people had an issue with how it was being adjudicated, so they tried to tweak and then ultimately made it worse.
They keep trying to outcoach coaches and players who are the smartest people in the game when it comes to playing the game.
Yeah.
You get reactionary decisions and reactionary rulemaking. It's pathetic.
And
then they're all interpretive rules. Well, most of them, sorry, not all of them. Way too many important rules are based on interpretation, when they need to make them black and white. They have capacity to make some of these rules black and white. They just choose not to.
Yeah, insufficient intent with the last touch out of bounds in
obvious one, particularly when they do it in AFLW.
I brought it up with when I was sitting on the couch with my old man the other day, because he'd been just staying with the parents the last couple of weeks, having a few footy discussions with him. Also had a really stern discussion about best and fairest and the modern Brownlow medal with him, which was fun. I think I turned him around on it. His main discussion was like, you can't have a Dave Granger winning a Brownlow medal, fucking classic Glenelg boy, that my old man is. But I was just like, the modern Brownlow medal wouldn't allow that, because Granger would be out for 15 games, so it doesn't matter. But
well, and it's an intentional hit,
but yeah, it's I lost my train of thought now, but you've been very eloquent and very. I'm glad that whatever I said triggered
there's
that
black and white rules.
And
less interpretive adjudications, and just make it black and white.
Yeah,
holding the ball, like, so I can't help but think of like the 3 seconds in the key rule in basketball.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like prior opportunity is a decent, like affording prior opportunity to apply holding the ball is fair, I think. And in the process of adjudicating holding the ball, but put a time measurement on it. Surely the fucking umpires, I know it's a quick game,
Mm.
but surely the umpires, whether it's through a utensil that the AFL would have the funds to probably develop, every time the ball gets handled by a player, whether it be 2 seconds or 3 seconds, whatever,
Mm.
use that as your determination. Again, might be an outlandish idea, but fucking they're not
Yeah, because
creating some good ones. Because then it goes away from has the player had prior opportunity, how much prior opportunity. You just
Mm.
go, he's had it for more than 3 seconds and got tackled, so it's holding the ball. That's,
Yeah.
yeah, again, high hopes potentially, but clicker, every time a player gets the ball, click, does it vibrate? I don't know. I'm just,
Or it could just be a
but
what? Yeah, it's interesting because it's such a fast moving pace because it's not because I was trying to think of goal line technology and how that works and because
well, and if it's too
it,
fast for you to react as an umpire, that probably means that it's not holding the ball as
yeah,
well. So,
yeah.
um,
Um,
but I
it's
mentioned
funny because
earlier
prior.
that,
I was just going to say prior opportunity to me is
yeah,
just it's always so obvious to me as a fan as well. Like
yeah,
it's just we all have a common sense understanding of it, which is why it makes it so frustrating. I think as fans too is like we generally have a good idea of what we're seeing because
yeah. There's
if
just too many
because
stipulations
I
that the
never
umpire has to calculate.
because there was a few moments there was plenty of moments on Friday night where Port players got caught holding the ball when they had prior opportunity and I threw my hands up in
You're
frustration at
like,
the Port look
damn,
I threw my hands up in frustrations
yeah,
that
yeah, we
whether
get it.
Brandon Zerk Thatcher I think had one Bergman might have had one too um or I might be thinking of someone else. But yeah, I get it. Like I had no complaints. I feel like
Yeah,
maybe I'm tooting my own horn, but I'm 36. I've been watching this godforsaken sport for a long time now. I have a
mm,
pretty good understanding and just a common sense understanding of what a holding the ball call is, and I'll never complain when one goes against us when we deserve it. But it's just like so it is like beyond thinking of technological advancements you can make we all have a good common sense understanding of it, but the AFL keeps tinkering and making it harder because the umpires in their head probably have a pretty, I assume they have a good common sense understanding, but then they're going, oh, but the AFL said this and this, that, and the other, and we've got to go with those guidelines, and
yeah.
then they're thinking
Oh,
about that in
he's
the
got one
moment.
arm free,
Yeah,
or yeah, he's got two legs free, but they're trapped under his body. But because they're free, then it's holding the ball. Like, yeah, there's
yeah,
way too many stipulations on it. It's
yeah,
yeah, it's just ridiculous. But um, I mentioned before that I don't necessarily disagree with four on-field umpires. I just think they could be set up better. Like,
yeah.
I honestly believe that the ground and
Their game
not,
plan needs to improve.
yeah, like I honestly believe that the ground should be split into four quadrants,
Mm,
and one umpire is designated to a quadrant. And therefore, wherever the ball is, you have two umpires to run the contest like linesmen in
mm,
world football. Because then you've at all times you've got at least three, because then the other two umpires are in the other half looking at the contest from that vantage point. And yes, you would need to still look at untowardness off the ball, pushing and shoving and that type of thing.
mm,
But having the umpires running contests like linesmen means that you're getting the best view of the contest to then adjudicate whatever's happening in the contest. And wherever the ball is, whatever quadrant the ball is, that umpire is the main officiating umpire. However, if the contest is facing away from that umpire, then hello, you've got an umpire looking at the contest from the better vantage point, and then they can make the call.
mm.
They just get lost way too often. And again, this is a professional competition. It shouldn't happen.
Yeah. we have the ability to make it much. Yeah, the AFL spends so much time fixing things they don't need to, and there's so much that can be fixed pretty simply, without much effort. That is just right there. As you've, I mean, as we touched on briefly, the last touch between the arcs. I don't want it in the inside 50 is different, but between the arcs, it's just so much. The AFLW does it really well. It's just like just doesn't make sense, and it would help the
Yeah, and
AFL
the
and speed.
SNFL.
Yeah, and the SNFL, but it's like the AFL is constantly like, how do we speed up the game? It's like, well, here you go. That's you're automatically taking away a stoppage, which can automatically generate another stoppage sometimes. So
Yeah.
you're
Well, and it's
speeding
not
it.
to say that there's never stoppages from a ball going out of
Yeah,
bounds on the wings. It's just it makes
but
it black and
there's
white. If you
automatically,
kick it
yeah.
or you fucking handball it, it's a turnover. Like it probably should be, to be honest, if
Mm,
we're talking about boundaries of a
yeah,
sporting field.
yeah. Ah, what a game, what a game, and we love it. Sadly, sometimes I can't,
Yeah.
I can't quit you.
Sorry if I'm coming through too distorted, listeners. Yeah. Very passionate tangent to go on. And something that we shouldn't really have to put that much energy into. But
Yeah.
yeah, on Friday night, it was just terrible. And I said immediately after the game that the umpiring would be 100% better on the Saturday because of how fucking bad it was on
Hmm.
Friday.
I was so hungover watching on Saturday. I don't actually know. I don't have a good read on it,
Oh,
but
I watched fuck all that game. Maybe
I
I
actually,
think I watched the last 2 minutes where Brisbane actually got ahead.
yeah, I watched probably the last. I actually watched the last half because, yeah, I was hanging out with my family and they put it on, and so it's like, yeah, no, like that was some footy content I took in, but yeah, might as well get to segments. I assume now. Good to go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Still got spotlight and watch list. Obviously, it's the season is finished, so we're not watching too much going forward or spotlighting someone that may be going good going, but it's more going forward into 2025 now. You get to go first on your spotlight this week, Jimmy. Um,
Okie dokie. I had this guy in my fucking votes for ages, and immediately after the game, I said this guy's the best on ground. Just about, but yeah, Jordan Sweet is my spotlight. Um,
love that.
yeah, he deserves votes. I've just to put it out there, yeah, didn't end up in my votes,
I can
but
put. I'll interject quickly to say that he was in my votes at one point as well, and didn't end up in them at the end, which is interesting. That
mm,
again, once again, we find ourselves on a similar wavelength. He just ended up dropping
yeah.
out. But yeah, anyway, go ahead with your spotlight. I just wanted to put that
Oh,
out
I
there too.
just thought, for one of our least experienced players on the field, he possibly did as much as he could have against an A grade ruckman
Hmm.
to try and get us moving in the positive for that preliminary final. It just capped off what was a fantastic season for him.
Hmm.
In the end, just his rise from second string at Bulldogs, being traded here, having to earn the right, and then yeah, just flourishing. It just capped off a good season for him, and yeah, for most of the night, I just sat there and went, "Your hard work is just not being rewarded past your possessions. Like once it's moved on from you and your contest, which you're doing great at, yeah, it didn't end up anywhere near the amount of scores that it should have. But he was putting in a great effort. I think he might have led us for clearances even in the end.
Yeah, I think he had a pretty good clearance number. I'm just looking. I'm just like scrolling up now as you're talking, but
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
he yeah second
Second for
to
clearances was 6.
yeah to JHF with 7. So yeah, but that's an incredible number because you're looking at Butters had 2.
Mm,
Where I'm looking at
yeah.
Rosie
Led us for
Rosie
tackles.
had 2. So uh Charlie Dixon had 4 clearances. Charlie Dixon was our equal second best in clearances. Shout out to the recently retired big man.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Again, a lot of people want to shit on him after this game, but yeah, for a guy on one leg, he did as much as he could have. But yeah, back to Jordan Sweet, 82% time on ground as well. 29 hit outs, 6 to advantage. So yeah, him and Grundy hit outs to advantage, fairly similar on the night. And going into the game, you're asking Jordan Sweet to at least halve that battle, that ruck contest, and I thought he did as well as he could have. I think he I think he won that. Arguably won that position on the field. One of few players for our team that won their position.
Well, I'll give you the stat. Hit outs to win percentage. Grundy was 41.8, Sweet was 43.9. So literally we won as far as taking possession out from the hit out, because hit out to advantage versus hit out to winning the stoppage is, slightly different. And yeah, Sweet won. So yeah, you saying he slightly shaded it just based on what you're viewing is the stat literally bears out that he won it by 2%. So and I think we talked about in our preview that was going to go a big way to hopefully us winning. Obviously, we didn't win the game, but he performed his role. It was just obviously other stuff around the ground. Like he did what he could. Like, I mean, we won stoppage, we won center clearance, shaded them. They weren't dominant wins, but you're never going to dominate. I assume you're never going to dominantly win a preliminary final. You just want to shade them. So he played his role to a T.
Well, I think one of the bigger issues is that we were dominating clearance at one point in the game by a large margin, and it had nothing to show for it.
Yeah. Oh God, what a fucking frustrating.
But yeah, he's my spotlight.
Yeah, no, I love that one. Like I said, he was very close to my votes. That's why I had to interject and say that now, so I didn't forget to say it later. Because yeah, he was so close. For my spotlight, it was a tough week, but I just wanted to. I don't have any actually real reason for it, and I don't even know if he had a great game, but I don't think he had a bad game. I'm just a big fan of him, and we've talked about wanting him back in. I just wanted to spotlight Josh Sin again. Just shout out that I think he's got a role going forward. He was 72% disposal efficiency. He had almost 300 meters gained in a game that we were, a lot of players were struggling a little bit. I just think in a game that his position was him coming into the side was a little bit, one of those contentious things in the weeks previous. I think he applied himself well. And gave us reason to, regardless of the result, to look forward to what he can bring with maybe a full preseason, with the understanding like he's maybe going into this preseason for 2025 the closest to feeling like he might be I'm not trying to put the mockers on him, but he might be the Jace Burgoyne of next year. Like that's just like he's in kind of that position that he's played a few games now. He's shown some stuff. Have a good preseason and see what it can do for you, because we've clearly seen what it can do for Jace Burgoyne, because he's become an integral part of our 22, whereas he was out of the 20. He was out of the side at the start of the year, a sub for a couple of games, came in, and now Jace Burgoyne is one of the
non-negotiable.
Yeah, non-negotiables. Yeah. So Josh Sin's kind of in that position now. He's played a few games. We've liked him. He's had a little bit of swag. He's had some good games off halfback. Like we've liked his run, liked his kind of just his vibes. So he can go into 2025, and if he can, obviously having played this game, assuming he's got no injury troubles at the moment. I know he's had some injury troubles in his first few years. That's why he hasn't come on as quick as some might have hoped. But if he can have an injury-free preseason, that's kind of, he's primed. His moment is now. So, and I think, beyond the game not going as great as we would have liked, I think he applied himself as good as he could. Like, there's a lot of players that you question before you question Josh Sin in that regard. So, I love him. I've got a bit of a soft spot for him anyway. So that might be part of it, but I think he's primed to have a crack next year if he can make sure the body stays right. That's the big thing for him. I think it's just getting a consistent run at it. Even this year, he cops the cracked collarbone or whatever it was in that
Yeah,
game.
and like he was in the side, and it
Yeah,
wasn't a soft tissue injury. So
yeah,
had that not happened, would he have finished the year with 10 games played, 12 games played, as opposed to what was it in the end, 6?
yeah. I don't
I
have
think
the
because
number in front of me.
it was
But
2 at that point in time. I think he played another couple. I'm not sure. Funnily enough, I think while it's a snapshot, it's still his best season at
yeah,
AFL level.
yeah,
But that point you made about being next year's Burgoyne, that's 100% what he's capable of doing, just really elevating. Because now, just through list changes, situations,
yeah.
like there's a spot for him to be had. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's right there, and I've said it a couple of times online to you. Like, I don't think he let himself down at all in the 2 finals that he played, especially considering the amount of experience at AFL level as a whole that he has or doesn't have.
He carries
Yeah,
a
he looked,
maturity and quiet confidence that I really enjoy.
yeah,
Like, yeah,
yeah,
he
just cool,
seems
calm, and
to.
collected. In his mind, it looked like he was trying to just keep things simple. Like,
Mhm.
this is what position I'm in. This is what my strengths are. Like, don't deviate too far from that straight
Yeah,
line of where his strengths lie. I was impressed. Like, nowhere near our best players in the 2 games that he played, but yeah, just didn't let himself down at all, in my opinion. So that's a good one.
yeah, yeah. No, I absolutely agree. All right, watch list. I, yeah,
Yeah,
you guys go
I
first.
didn't have a watch because like the season's done.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm.
but
And
yeah,
you can pick one. I mean,
I
mine
could
was
easily
just
pick one. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Like, I guess he's not my watch list. Just a note on Jackson Mead's final series as a whole. For such a good
yeah.
year that he had,
Good, good point.
yeah,
Yeah,
probably didn't have anywhere near the final series, and in particular this game. But he had such a good year. That's not my watch list. So,
just a
just
note
a
on
bit
that because we
disappointing.
talked about him at times as when we were playing really well that he was like that sixth midfielder, high half forward that was really impacting. He was that last five of your 22 player that was really that elevates a side. And yeah, when you lose in the finals and he goes missing a little bit,
Yeah,
that's where it's lost
that's the
sometimes.
underbelly getting
Yeah, yeah,
exposed.
exactly.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um. My biggest, to be honest, like I don't really want to talk about it, but my biggest watch list is Asava. Like, I just don't know what to do
Dude,
with him now.
dude, oh my God. As you were going, I don't really want to talk about it in my head. I was going, I'm thinking of Sava. So let's just meld ours and just, yeah, that we can do a couple of minutes on
Do
that
do
because,
do do do
yeah.
do.
Um,
Yeah, it's just a really interesting position because again, a bit similar to Soldo, he was brought over with a role in mind, and it's a role that we sold to him to come over.
mm,
On top of the fact that he wanted game time, um, yeah, I think he had a fairly decent amount of game time last year for Geelong, to be honest.
mhm.
So, but now,
Yeah, the
I
game
guess
time
the
last
watch
year and
is.
lost his spot, I think, in Geelong, right? So,
He got injured last year, and I think
okay.
it's a bit like Sean Marsh for the Australian cricket team. Is a lot of people
Mm,
think that Sean Marsh got dropped and had to earn his way back in, when in actual fact he just got injured too frequently and had to earn his way back in
yeah.
off the back of injury.
Yeah.
Um, so the watch for Asava is just, what pre-season does he do? Does he do it as a defender? Does he do it as a forward? Because I think we were on the lower end of criticism when he was in our back line.
Mm,
It just looked like a back line that needed more time, more pre-seasons together.
yeah.
You can't just smash a bunch of people together and go be a top 4 defense line in the competition.
But then once
we
took him out,
yeah,
it
and we saw the
suddenly
merit
fucking worked.
in.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, and he went
and
forward to that Carlton game.
Bergman going back as well, and yeah, a few decisions.
Yeah, that helped. That definitely helped. Yeah, we swung him forward. It really looked like it was going to be a bit of a game. Well, it was a game changer against Carlton, and we kind of ran through it. And again, we saw merit in what it could mean. Again, if everyone's playing their role properly, if we're delivering the ball right into the forward line. But all of a sudden, he stopped being able to mark the ball with regularity. Didn't kick any goals really past that Carlton game. So now it's just like, well, where's his best commodity for us? Because you can't really bring a guy like him in who, we wanted a big body defender who, we knew wasn't going to be the finished product, and we said that at the start of the year. He needed to build into it. I thought he had a lot of positive moments in the defense. A lot of his bad moments got highlighted, probably unfairly, and that's across the AFL landscape. BZT gets chucked into that basket too. So, yeah, it's a really. I would love to be a fly on the wall for his exit meeting with Ken and the coaches or whatever, because, yeah, it's just an interesting watch where, yeah, what preseason he does and what line he does it with.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it'll look good if we recruit him and then he has to play seconds.
Yeah.
Next year.
Yeah, it's funny that like you were talking about the parallel with Soldo and Sweet. It's just like, yeah, Asava was the one coming in as the leading defender, and BZT maybe not great on the weekend, but overall I've been really impressed with him. And another preseason,
agreed.
Maybe with the fact that he's now known as a defined role defender for Port Adelaide. Who knows what next season can bring for him? Yeah, what do you do? Because we both loved the point of difference he brought to the attack. We were like forward 50 pressure. He does bring it, like there was some of those games he provided little assists because he gets his body in the right spot to flick off a handball. But
yeah,
absolutely. It was diminishing returns as it got closer, and then into finals. It just became teams started knowing, okay, yeah, you just got to fucking body him and keep him, and then he really didn't factor as much, and because at least if our biggest concern in those first few weeks he was up forward was like his finishing. The last few weeks it was like, can he even get a fucking shot on goal? Like, so that's not the question you want to be asking. So yeah, that's a good watch.
No.
And then obviously, yeah, does the club go? Do we want to try and throw him back, or the preseason question is a really good one. So that's a good watch. I'm gonna just piggyback off that and say that, because as you were looking for one in my mind, I was like, I think it's Sava's mine. So when you brought it up, I was like, yeah, let's just meld that together to save a bit of time here, because I think that's probably the big one out of this season. I think with the big name players, as far as he's a big name player, as far as a big name recruit anyway.
And I think everyone else on our list has defined positions. They just need to improve upon them, no matter whether you're Connor Rosie or Josh Sin, like we were talking about.
Yeah,
they have their positions. We know their positions. Their job is just to improve, as any sportsman would want to do. But yeah, him and the coaches, they got to figure out what position they're going to play him in.
Yeah,
and then improve in that position.
Yeah, whatever position it is, there needs to be a lot of work done, which is just an incredible position to be in. All right, goal of the week. Not too bad this week for goals, considering the game it was. I get to go first in this one, so I'm going to go. There was a few I wanted to go with, but it's not like I'm a big Ryan Burton fan, but I do like to just, give him some love here and there, because I think he gets a little bit undue. Yeah, It's not like I understand the criticism, but I think it gets a bit overt, like he's a scapegoat at the same time as well. And so his goal in the first quarter.
Melican's kick was partially smothered. Boak went and got it. Opportunity, and opportunity taken by Ryan Burton.
And they get it into a dangerous spot to a contest. And just pushing down nicely there, a really good finish.
I think that shows how tough Butters is, because he got up, laughed at it, and just ran on as if it was nothing.
Great snap technique from distance. I think it was about 40 out. Good feed from Boak, by the way. Just to, I know Boak got a lot of criticism from the game, but really nice handball dish from Boak. And Burton was like just a great set play kind of stuff, because, Boak handballs and Burton's already like, yeah, I know what I'm doing kind of with this. Like, I'm turning around and snapping it. It's a great snap technique from 40.
Yeah.
Just technique goal, a beautiful goal, and at a time when we really needed it. So, loved it. Burton's snap is my goal of the week nominee. And yeah, just to interject here before Jamie puts his in, I will figure out over the next week some kind of online voting. I'm going to put a video package together of the goals of the week and the Sweeneys, and then put it out there for people to, on Twitter. I'll just put a link out there, and whoever wants to vote on them, look at them and vote on them for our actual goal
And
of
on
the
the
year.
gram.
Yeah, goal of the year, Sweeney of the year, and then we'll announce them. When we do our review of the season, there will be the review of the season, the serious stuff, and then we'll do our reveal our player of the year, which
Nice.
probably pretty obvious at this point, and then goal of the year and all that stuff. So yeah, I'll figure that out, the mechanics of that over the next week. But yeah, we're not going to be doing our review for the next until probably 3 weeks at least. I think let the dust settle, I think, is an important thing. By the way, just get some space from something if you're going to review it in a mature way. So yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to put that out there now, just so people understand what the mechanics of the goal of the week and stuff have been. So anyway, your goal of the week nominee for the last time this year for the men.
No worries. Yeah. Thank you. So my nomination is coming into the game. We would have expected a lot more of this, but the Willie Rioli goal in the second quarter.
Burgoyne out the back, trying to shuffle it to Rioli. Rioli, brilliant. What a spinning pickup it was.
A great play, Willie Rioli there, just able to push off his man. He's so smart around goals. A good finish, and that gets them back into a
where was pushed forward through effort. Yeah, I think out of congestion, into congestion, out of congestion, and then Willie just kind of sold a tiny bit of candy, I think, and got through a bit of traffic to snap a goal in the second quarter, which was before halftime, which kind of gave us that little it's not insurmountable, this lead, but it was hard work after Swans had just kicked 4 goals in a row. So bit of Willie magic again. We were expecting more Willie magic coming off the back of the Hawthorn game, but unfortunately,
just
didn't get it.
Yeah, we just didn't
except for that moment.
Ball in those areas enough for him to exert that magic. I think
No. We didn't benefit Rioli's game at all.
Yeah, you and I texted, I think, at some point during the week previous. We were like, if we can get 6 goals combined at least out of Mitch and Willie,
George,
whatever the metric may be, it could be 5 for Mitch, 1 for Willie, whoever. If there's 6 between those two, you're on your way to a win. They got 2 between them, so that just kind of speaks to you just need some of those spark plug players to play, and nothing against them, by the way, obviously, but that's just the game just didn't go their way, and that's why you don't win. So, all right, Sweeney's, which you get to go first. I hope you don't pick mine because I don't have many, but I'm going to let you go first and then figure it out.
It's tough. This is a really, not sorry. Yeah, there's not a lot of fanfare that goes along with this, but Lockie Jones took a contested mark in the third quarter, which I liked. I think it was off the back of a kick in, and through chain of possession, it ended up being Georgiades one goal in the end. So, yeah, off the back of a kick in, Lockie Jones.
The whole way, as you said, had a little bit more time than he thought he had.
Would have been his 200th goal in footy. Didn't quite work for him.
Felt the pressure coming, stood it up. He still took the mark and got the chain of possession going from there. So,
Yeah.
Lockie Jones contested mark in the third quarter.
Yeah, he was on my shortlist for watch. It's not watch, sorry, spotlight this week too. Just think he's Lockie Jones has just quietly found, not perfect over the last few weeks, but he's quietly found a little bit more in his game to taking the marks better, considering some of the criticism that happened earlier in the year and
based off of probably one game.
Yeah, unwarranted as it was, but
yeah.
No, that's a great one. I actually have been really impressed with him over the recent weeks and months. So another one that I'm really excited for him getting, if he can get through a full preseason fit and go into the side next year. Really excited for what he can develop into going into next year.
Agreed.
My Sweeney, you actually brought it up actually. This is somewhat cynical of me as a Sweeney. Burgoyne's tackle on Hayden McLean that didn't get paid.
This is a great build-up. Here's Ollie Florent. Got back to McLean. Burgoyne's got him in the tackle. Run him down in the end. No free kick.
We didn't count Lockie Jones' dangerous tackle last week. So yeah.
God damn it! But it wasn't.
It should have been holding the ball.
Yeah, it wasn't. I guess the Lockie Jones dangerous because it was paid, whereas this one was just actually a good tackle. It just wasn't.
Just let go.
Yeah. It's just let go. Me. I had to finish. I had to finish the season in the men's respect on a Burgoyne tackle because it has become a theme for me this year. My love for his and just his ferociousness, and I think Burgoyne had a really good game again. And yeah, his tackle technique in different ways. Like it depends on. It can be a stand-up tackle. He understands how to take people down without letting the shoulders lift and get high tackles, as well as holding them down and not pushing them down in the back. Whereas that one was just like it was a tackle in quick motion, and he still was able to effect what should have been a holding the ball call. Didn't happen, but yeah, I'm going with it because I had nothing else. So that was literally I locked in on that one early and had to go with that one. So,
yeah, there wasn't much to take out of it from a Sweeney perspective. I had a couple handballs through traffic or across the body. Yeah. I was going to say when you said about your Burgoyne tackle being a theme, unfortunately there was no like kicks across the body inside 50 that ended up being marks. So yeah, nothing for me for my theme. But yeah, we'll let the people decide, Yeah. I remember the Brisbane game. We were just like, is there any point? But yeah, I'll get on the highlight reel.
I think it was a Geelong game that I was actively protesting, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was a Geelong game.
I gave two Sweeneys.
You gave both because I was like, I'm going to nominate Jeremy Cameron's goal otherwise. So, well, that was actually goal of the week. But anyway, all right, player of the year, which again, this is the last votes for the men's competition this year. So I get to go first. My first vote, so 1 through 5. Threw Ryan Burton in there. He was leading disposal getter on the night. Again, think he's been much maligned across the year, and obviously he was dropped for good reason at times. His position is a part of it because he was behind the pecking order. But yeah, leading disposal getter on the night. 6 rebound 50s, led us in meters gained. Disposal efficiency was reasonable, just like 78%. just he's come in to play a role and he's played it as best. I think you brought up he can he's not gonna be Dan Houston, but he's doing the role as best he can, and I think he's shown a bit he is. I've said before, he's an incredibly talented player. He can get his hands on the footy, and he can be pretty effective with the footy. The disposal efficiency numbers. He took some good marks. Obviously, I just nominated him for a goal of the week. Yeah, like most players on the night, a lot of stuff not to write home about as well. But I had to give him one vote.
Yeah.
2 votes I'm going to give to Zach Butters. Could have given him 5 for the fact, as we found out after the game that he played through with cracked ribs in the last 2 games, which is incredible considering some of the footage of him just crack. He's the one trying to crack other players' ribs at times in the last couple of.
Well, yeah, we spoke about it with the Hawthorn game.
Yeah,
he was just lining people up to take that mental load off himself and the mental edge out of Hawthorn's hands.
Which just speaks to just
that's amazing.
The nutcase he kind of is, which I
well,
love.
And there was something on top of that that said that earlier in the season he played with like a cracked collarbone.
That's right, yeah. And I'm like,
yeah,
what the fuck? Again, I said I've had a busy week work-wise, and I just haven't had time to look into. I've seen tweets, and you reminded me of that one. I meant to go on a deep dive to find out when that happened, and I haven't had the chance. But apparently,
it's amazing what you don't know from an outsider perspective throughout a football season. So then when things get leaked, you generally believe them because clubs can keep things secret, but if things are getting out, it's because certain people want them to get out, is my opinion. So how they kept the collarbone a secret, and no one knew about the cracked ribs. When they said that he had bruised ribs, everyone was just like, oh, okay, yeah. I guess he'll get targeted, but
cracked ribs.
It's worse.
It is an interesting one because it's one of those ones I don't think that can get any worse. So it's just like you just play with it and you go for broke. And as he had a decent game. Like we've probably seen that he's been a bit below par. For what we expect.
I thought he got well held on the night, personally. He had a hard job.
Yeah, it's hard to find votes in this one, but I just thought that the fact that he's played through those, I was just like, no, I'm giving him votes because I think that's. I've had a dislocated rib once, and it was. I think I brought it up on the podcast once before.
Yeah,
one of the most painful things.
Hurts to sneeze.
Hurts to sneeze. Hurts to you can't fucking watch You can't watch a comedy because you just giggle and it starts to and it's not just, it's searing pain. That's the kind of pain it is. So he's a kind of summed up the fact that he won the Courageous Player Award from the Players Association. My 3 votes go to Connor Rozee. Again, much maligned after this one because some people don't understand that what role he plays. Once again, second in pressure acts behind Darcy Byrne-Jones, another maligned player. But Connor Rozee, I've been watching him a little bit more closer over the past probably month or two as well, because as some of that criticism has happened, and his pressure play is I watched the pressure act stuff, and I wanted to talk about it for a second. Pressure act. There's 5 different types of pressure acts. It can be chasing and applying.
They're actually talking about that leading up to the game, leading up to the weekend.
Okay, because
on radio, I heard it in 2 separate SEN shows that they were breaking down what is a pressure act, and I was like, oh, thank God, because up until that point, I didn't really know.
Yeah, no, well, because I've looked it up before, but I wanted to bring it up again here because I wanted people to understand what Connor Rozee is doing week to week, because we bring it up week to week. He's often one of our leading pressure act players, and people don't realise what he's doing, and he's often up there in tackle. What was his tackle numbers? Before I get into the pressure act thing, tackle numbers.
4. equal second with two other players.
Yeah, so not like and Jordan Sweet, by the way, led the tackles. Sweetie, big Sweetie. But pressure acts, there's 5 different types. There's corralling, the lowest form of pressure a player can apply, where they simply occupy space in front of a ball carrier to prevent them from moving forward. Pressure act chasing, when a player applies pressure from behind an opponent by chasing. Pressure act implied, reducing an opponent's decision-making time without physical contact via corralling, closing space, or chasing from behind. So it's like a combination of them all. Pressure act closing, a higher degree of pressure than corralling, where the pressure player is on the verge of making contact with the ball carrier, either from in front or the side, as he disposes of the ball. So it's kind of like when you're just lunging at the player when they're disposing of the ball.
You're just about to tackle them, but they've disposed of it, but they haven't got a clean disposal away.
Exactly. And then pressure act, obviously the physical one, which is applying direct physical contact to a player in the act of disposing of the ball or effecting a tackle that prevents an effective disposal from a ball carrier. So you look at all those and you go, there's a lot of people that just go, that's not Connor Rozee, but we keep saying he's one of our leading pressure act players. And sorry, when I go to pressure act averages on the season, Willem Drew, by the way, WD28, you're going to love this. He leads with 22.8 pressure acts on the season.
I'm not surprised. I can't say I'm surprised.
WD 22.8. But Connor Rozee is second on the season, 20.1 pressure acts per game. So just completely betrays what your media narrative and some fan narratives are on what Connor Rozee. Yes, you can look. I hope going forward in his turning his 24 into 25 age season that he improves it. Like, we want him to be better because we think he can be better. But he's a pretty fucking elite player right now. He does a lot. Like he was our only multiple goal scorer on the night, with 2 pretty good goals that could have. I almost had one of them as my nominee this week, but he does a lot of unsung things. The pressure act is an unsung stat. It doesn't get talked about enough, I think. But yeah, that was a massive tangent for my third vote, by the way. But I just wanted to bring that up. We talk about pressure. Yeah, we talk about pressure acts a lot. So Jason HORNE-FRANCIS got my 4 votes. Again, this week was a tough one because it's just a loss. So but he had, he was operating at 82% disposal efficiency, which is for Jason HORNE-FRANCIS, sometimes we do expect him to be pretty good, particularly, an early stat of his at Port Adelaide was his disposal inside 50. But he in this game overall, he was operating at really good efficiency. Score involvement's 5, which is second only to Boak and Willem Drew. He had 300, almost 400 meters gained, but clearances, I think he led us with 7 as well. So just not a great Jason HORNE-FRANCIS game. Again, we lost by 6 goals, so it is what it is. But my number 1 had to give Jace Burgoyne. I don't know why I had to give it to him, but I think, again, age comes into it. His age profile versus what he's performed at after the Geelong game, by the way. I think it's really 84% disposal efficiency, similar meters gained to Jason HORNE-FRANCIS. Starting the game off with a goal, I think that's a pressure moment. You're getting a free kick in a prelim final.
Yeah, getting your side underway. Yeah.
And again, if I could have goal kicking action as a Sweeney, the slow motion, like, just beautiful. But I think it just 8 contested possessions as well, which was up there. Like, there was a few. We only had 2 or 3 in double figures, which is HORNE-FRANCIS with 12, which I meant to bring up. But Aaliyah and Sweet both had 11. Again, shout out to Sweet. Like, just often,
stats, I know.
Sweet pops up in there. With
that means, and just on that, it means that all of Jordan Sweet's possessions were contested because he finished with 11 disposals.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
he had a good game.
I need to do my votes again.
Not that there was any, debate about that, but it's interesting.
But yeah, I think Jace Burgoyne applied himself really well, and in this one, I don't. It's hard to find a best on ground for me. I just was just like, for his age, I just think he probably, that's just who I had best on ground. I don't know any rhyme or reason to it. That's just where I landed in my votes. 3 days ago is when I landed at these, and I'm already kind of flailing it. But yeah, I have no problem having Jace best on ground, based on just his output with what he did, and certainly his age profile does. I think he's played beyond his years the last couple of weeks. Sucks that we had to
Oh
finish.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's elevated his star
Absolutely.
over the year, and then in particular those two finals. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So yeah, Jordan Sweet was going to be an honorable mention, but I brought him up as a spotlight anyway. So my one vote goes to Aaliyah. I think the first half could have been much worse had we not had Aaliyah down back, especially in the first quarter. So he finished the game on 15 disposals, 11 of which are contested, like you just said. He went at 80% disposal efficiency. Yeah, so 8 marks, 7 of which were intercept marks, and then 4 of which were contested. So yeah, 7 rebound 50s as well. I just thought, yeah, had he not been playing for us, yeah, that margin could have been much bigger, much earlier in the game. So yeah, credit to him. My 2 votes goes to Travis Boak. Now,
I like
yeah,
that. I didn't quite get him in mind because of the turnovers, but I did think
so.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Travis Boak had 4 turnovers that directly eventuated in goals for Sydney. And I wrote on Twitter on the night that, like, I love Travis Boak. It's obvious. I've loved his whole career, but he had his worst game. He saved his worst for tonight, Friday night. 2 are separate. I didn't necessarily mean worst game of his career. Probably his worst game for the season is what I was getting at. But then, yeah, when you look at it, like so he had 22 disposals, 570 odd meters gained, 6 marks. Now, he had 1 goal, 1 himself, and then 2 goal assists. You've already mentioned 1 to Ryan Burton. So for the 4 that he gave up one way, he contributed to 3 going our way, all wrapped up in 7 score involvements, 5 inside 50s and 6 rebound 50s. So funnily enough, he was our highest champion data rated player on the night, Travis Boak.
I hadn't necessarily champion data stuff again. I went into
yeah. So again, love-hate relationship as you've mentioned. Yeah. And look, my tweet, really reactionary. It's just, they were so blatant, those turnovers for goals. And it's like, one of the comments I made while watching it, while my head was in my hands, was like, you used to be captain. Like, you can't make those mistakes.
And you can see what he's trying to do, and he's just like trying to, like, chip kick and undercook kicks.
It's just not Travis Boak.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just someone trying to work outside of their
role.
box.
Yeah. Which absolutely respect for the fact he takes on that role. So I love that you're giving him votes, because I thought about it, but I was just like, turnovers are in my mind. But yeah.
I kept him out for so long. Like, I was just stubborn while doing my votes, and I was like, Boakey cannot make it in my votes. But when you look at the objective data, like, he worked his fucking ass off for the whole night. And yeah, he directly contributed to 3 goals that we kicked on the night. So yeah, and led our score involvements, like you said, along with Drew. My 3 votes goes to Connor Rosie for a lot of the same reasons that you gave him 3 votes, like 17 disposals. So yeah, mid-pack in terms of our bigger movers and shakers, but 500 meters gained, the 2 good goals
Not
that
far
you
off
mentioned.
either,
We
didn't have big disposals.
4 score involvements as a whole, 8 inside 50s, 4 tackles, 18 pressure acts, which were brought up. 10 of those pressure acts were in the defensive half. So yeah, so much criticism for a 24-year-old in his first year as captain. Yeah, we spoke at length about that. Was it last week? Or the week before?
It definitely came up in the Geelong. It's come up a lot in the finals anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of the reasons that you spoke about, he had a good game.
Yeah.
He didn't have a phenomenal game, but he had a good game.
Mm.
My 4 votes goes to Jace Burgoyne. So yeah, 19 disposals, 8 of which were contested. He had 8 ground ball gets, which I thought was fairly noteworthy. Which was our leading stat getter in that line. 84% disposal efficiency, 5 score involvements, 4 tackles. So a good, well-rounded Jace Burgoyne game, along with the goal that he kicked as well, which I hadn't had written down. So yeah, a lot of the same sentiments that you went with.
I think the goal action is literally what got him the 5 votes from me, as I keep thinking about it.
Yeah, well, I
literally the slow motion action. That's it. Before you get to your 5 votes.
The funny thing is Jordan Sweet was the only one that I wanted and could remember, like, from watching it on the night, going, he deserves votes, and then he didn't even end up in there anyway.
Yeah.
And Burgoyne, I had just kind of forgotten about his game, and I wasn't going to put him in the votes, and then he's ended up with 4. So, anyway, my best on ground goes to Jason HORNE-FRANCIS. So he led equally with Ryan Burton with 23 disposals. Now, 12 of which were contested. He had 6 ground ball gets, so second best on ground for us. 82% disposal efficiency, which is said. 372 meters gained, 5 scoring involvements, 7 clearances, 4 from the center, 5 inside 50s, and 14 pressure acts. But all of this was contained within 79% time on ground as well. So, yeah, I elevated his positioning in the votes based on the amount of time that he had on ground, and considering that he either stat led or was up in our top handful of stat leaders in some critical ones, albeit, not playing 21% of the game, which is interesting because I think the 79% marker is about average for him. And then, after the Geelong game and him not starting on the field and blah, 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 he then went up to, what was it, like 85% or something like that. And then he ended up cramping. So obviously our staff know our players better than fucking pundits do.
I swear he mentioned something about some asthma that he has as well. So, like,
that was in the interview at Alberton where the guy did the burnout. Did you see the video?
Oh yeah, I shared it. Yeah, I was just like,
it was. I think it was in that interview that he mentioned.
He's just like, benefits of doing this at Alberton,
yeah. So look, in honesty,
the fucking power.
yeah. In all honesty, though, like, I don't think there really was a standout best on ground.
Yeah,
I mean, our votes similar in some regards, but there's a couple of differences. Like, it was just one of those games where no one really tore it apart. Just where you lay some value when doing these things, as we've said before. But that rounds out my votes, our votes.
And that rounds out
for the season.
votes,
yeah,
and the men's for the year. So we'll I'll obviously have the tally for everyone on the our review pod in a couple of weeks. Well, three weeks or whenever we get to it. We're not going to push to it. I think we'll figure it out based on maybe trade period or something. I just need to find. We'll find a date anyway to do the review pod for the season based on just whatever the news cycle is and where it fits in that. So that's about it for the men at this point. It has gotten quite late. So how much do you want to? Because the Richmond game for the AFLW is the one that's most fresh in my mind and the one that I think has more value to talk about. We'll touch on the women played the Kangaroos.
Realistically, the themes over the 2 games are much the same.
Yeah,
for me.
Yeah,
Like we started slow and then challenged in the second half.
yeah, yeah, and particularly with the Kangaroos game, it was just we got smashed everywhere on the field. Whereas the Richmond game, we did actually win some statistical areas, and we could have found a way to a win if some things had gone right. The Kangaroos game, we just got smashed off the field in the first half, and then it kind of just coasted for the rest of it. So yeah, we can do. I mean, we can just mention the women played the Kangaroo. Not wanting to diminish the women, but it's just like we've done a big preliminary final review, and the women, unfortunately, because of the way the AFL schedules the women's games, we've got two that we've had to watch in the last week, and one of them was just a demolition, where Teakle scored a lone score at all in the game in which we lost. I think it was what was the score? I had it here somewhere, but yeah, we scored literally one goal against the Kangaroos while they scored 6 goals, I think actually. So, yeah, we lost pretty handily to the Kangaroos on Friday night, preceding our preliminary final loss in the men's. Did you have anything to say about that game in particular? Because I think the Richmond games were the one that's probably more just to give ourselves maybe half an hour before we finish off here. I want to talk. My notes mainly on the Richmond game. We can do our votes quickly for the Kangaroos, unless you have anything on that one.
I'm just obviously watching more women's football. I'm starting to dislike certain opposition players, and
I love that. I love
Alice
that.
O'Loughlin for the Kangaroos, I dislike. I think she's a very good player,
Mm,
but yeah, there was some stuff on the field. There's a dangerous tackle, or I don't even think it was adjudicated as a dangerous tackle. That was one. Some other questionable things, but yeah, I guess it means that I'm caring a bit more and learning a bit more because now I'm starting to dislike opposition players too.
yeah. As we keep saying, we're like, it's the big thing about us with reviewing women's is we're getting a real handle on our team. It's just we're learning the other teams. Like, I mean, when we get to talking about Richmond, it's the first time we've ever played Richmond in AFLW, and it's our third season in the competition, which kind of just shows just the disparity in how it's. I mean, I know they're
Mm,
fixturing based on your strength, and they're trying to not, but I don't think we should have to wait 3 seasons to play Richmond like at the same time. So
weak AFL. That is weak.
yeah, it's bush league commentary. Bush
Yeah,
league,
look,
yeah. But yeah, on the
bush
Kangaroos.
league. That's bush league. Yeah, the disparity, what you just said, the skill level, the game plan, and
There's also
cleanliness of possession, even in the wet, is
yeah,
the biggest takeaway from the Kangaroos game. We just got outplayed and um outplayed well, realistically for a half of football. And
yeah,
then in the second half, we actually won the second half against the Kangaroos. So it's
yeah,
just 4 quarters of football.
yeah. But
But yeah,
we lost a
the
lot of
Richmond
areas
game.
that we generally pride ourselves on in the women's game as well. So it's just like
Yes.
it just was part of it. So um we can
Yeah,
shoot
where
for
we've shown mature strides in development across the early portion of the season. Yeah, it was a kind of a step back in like the maturity in the way that we played the game in the
yeah,
first half against the Kangaroos. And then, yeah, thankfully it started bucketing down and it kind of allowed us to play in the realm that we're most comfortable in.
mhm,
That tackle, higher tackle contested, well, yeah, just dogged
yeah. Good,
mode of
good,
football.
good finish from Teakle again. In the wet, like that would have been a soggy ball and good finish for our
Yeah,
one
what a
goal.
champ.
Yeah, loving what she's doing so far. Um, so I guess we can quickly rattle through our votes. I guess
Okay, yep.
yeah, just do our votes for the Kangaroos, and then we can get to the Richmond game where we can spend a good do 20-30 minutes on before we finish here because it's going to be a long podcast, but there's a lot going on. The
Sure.
yeah, sure. You can do your votes first for the Kangaroos game.
Okay. Honorable mention to Jesus Christ, Molly Brooksby.
Yes,
Um,
love her.
yeah, she, yeah, keeps putting her name up and around our best players, but yet to crack Player of the Year votes thus far. But yeah, just some good signs for such a young player early. Honorable mention. My number one, my one vote goes to Caitlin Wenland. Not a huge disposal game, 7 disposals, 4 of which are contested. She did go up 57%, which is on the higher end of our players from that Kangaroos game. She had the 1 goal assist to Julia Teagle. um, but the thing with Wendland, and it's why this is more like a combination of her efforts across the early part of the season, which I could have given someone else the 1 vote for this game, but she's just consistently up there for our tackles. She had 7 tackles, 4 of those were inside 50. She's doing a lot off the ball. She's just not finding a lot of the ball herself for mine. But she's worked that hard in her pressure game, tackling game, that I wanted to give her a vote just to give her a pat on the back for the hard work that she's put in for the early portion of the season. My 2 votes goes to Ange Foley. I thought in the wet, senior player, again, with 1 senior player down, our captain in JC. Ange Foley has had to lift a little bit. She had 10 disposals, 6 contested. She went at 60%. I don't have my stats. That's why I can't find it. So 60% was, 3rd best on ground for us against the Kangaroos. 231 meters gained, 3 rebound 50s, 5 tackles, and those 3 out of those 5, were inside 50. 3 votes goes to Caitlin Pope. I was really impressed with her impact on the game once she got started getting her hands on the football. She had 11 disposals, 8 of which were contested. She had 286 meters gained, which was 3rd best on ground for us. 4 clearances, 4 inside 50s, and 6 tackles. So a good, well-rounded game from someone who hasn't really put her name up in lights for us thus far. Until that game, I thought, she was really noticeable. 4 votes goes to Maria Maloney. 15 disposals, 12 of which are contested. Nothing new in that regard. Just over 200 meters gained, 5 clearances and 5 tackles. Typical Maloney game, which in a similar vein goes to best on ground and probably won't be, probably up this end of the votes pretty frequently across the season. In Abby Dowrick, 18 disposals, 9 contested, nearly 400 meters gained, 2 clearances of her own, and 8 tackles. So, just consistently either our best player or, not far off. And just, we've spoken before, just looks like a well-rounded footballer as a whole. So she, best on ground for me. Versus the Kangaroos.
Yeah, no, I love that. Getting into mine, I've got very similar to yours, apart from one player. I've got Caitlin Pope in my 1 spot. Same reasons as yours, just trying to spin through quickly. My 2 votes, I went to O'Day because she had, I just thought, which I know you love. She only had the 8 disposals, and it was a shit of a game, but she every possession she had was contested, which just sums up her. She's always present to me, even if it's not like she's just always around the ball, around the contest, which I really appreciate. And I just thought with the game it was, I think I used. I have it in my graphics package for the. I was going to say, I did the graphics for the podcast 2 days ago when we were going to record. I have an image of her in the graphic for the podcast when it pops up on your Spotify, whatever you use, of her just tackling a Kangaroos player, just with rain pouring around her. It's just like, just sums up what her game is to me.
Yeah, she's uncompromising. Gets herself in a little bit of trouble because of it, but she doesn't take a backward step, which I appreciate.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love it. So, my 3 votes, Ange Foley, she's having to step up she already played a really good senior leader role anyway, but she's having to step up and loving what she's doing. Not going through any of the stats because obviously you've gone through them. Abby Dowrick's my 4 votes, and Maria Melodi's my 5 votes on that game. So yeah, we'll get into the Richmond game now, so we can talk about that a little bit before we knock off for the night. Really intriguing game to watch. We were planning to podcast on that night, and then you were crook.
Yes.
I was actually pretty knackered, so I was like, when you said, I was like, oh, I'll just settle in to watch the game. Started off a pretty rough first quarter with 13-5 down in inside 50s in the first quarter. The reason I bring that up is when I get down to our inside 50 numbers for the game, I'm pretty sure we won them if I remember my stats correctly. Where are my inside 50 numbers? I had them here somewhere.
It was 30-37.
There we go. Yeah, there it is. I actually, when I screenshotted it, I cut off the title. So, but yeah, we won. After losing inside 50s by -8 in the first quarter, we won. We were +7 by the end of the game, which kind of shows where the game was lost, but also really impressed with the effort we showed after quarter time. Basically, slow starts is an issue. Clearly, the Kangaroos game, but that's the thing why I wanted to kind of focus on the Richmond game a little bit more. The Kangaroos game was an aberration in a lot of the things that we do well. We didn't do well, and then Kangaroos being a good side. Just to touch on it, by the way, just to look at the ladder quickly. Kangaroos are in third after. Well, actually, I took the screenshot of the ladder a couple of days ago, and I know they're doing this weird midweek fixture thing, but Kangaroos and Richmond a couple of days ago were top 4 sides. So we've played 2 of the top 4 sides in the last. A Friday, Tuesday, 4-day swing in games. So that should be taken into account as well. The Kangaroos are a really good side this year so far. They outclassed us, understandable. Really intriguing, though, looking at the Richmond game, how we actually were able to exert dominance for extended periods of time. Questions to be asked about how we facilitate, capitalizing on that dominance, but really impressed. Really impressed with how we did actually get the ball up the ground and keep it up the ground, because that's been an issue for us at times. In the first quarter, is Richmond got it down their end and kept it down there, with partly because they kept on missing. So it was kickouts and
that helps
and keeping the ball in. Sometimes you can exert, particularly in AFLW. Just with the way the game's played, is you can exert forward 50 dominance by missing and then just keeping it in there if you've just got better marking players and contested players around there. And we, Lauren Arnell brought it up on the night. 12 of the starting team were 18-21.
That was an interesting point. I thought that was interesting. I'd forgotten about it, so I'm glad that you brought it up.
I will go back, though, because I saw you bring up, as I was talking about contested stuff, you were nodding and and so I'll let you go with that, because I feel like you've got something you want to say there.
Oh, contested possession?
Just the marking and I was talking about contested. Just marking.
Oh, you said marking, and that's what. Because it's.
That's one of my criticisms at this point, is we need to get better.
We need to mark the ball. We find ourselves under so much unnecessary pressure just because we can't take that pressure relieving mark. Whether uncontested,
sometimes an uncontested mark too, because we just misread it and it bounces off the pelvis rather than the chest because we've misread it, and then it's just
or just bounces out the hands because they're not giving with it. But Richmond 38 marks to our 19 on the night. It especially when you say they were missing, so we were getting kicks back in from the goal square, kicking it, whether it was to their advantage or not. They just had players that were able to mark it and then re-enter inside 50. It's just, it's So therefore, players like Ash Saint and Gemma Houghton are just getting wasted up forward because we can't get it there with any fluency. And that's the difference between, Richmond, Kangaroos, and then, we played the Crows, although that was a great effort and a great game on our end. There's just these better sides. They are able to link up with chain of possession much, much better than we are at the moment, but they can also mark the ball with a bit more frequency and just relieve all that pressure. Like, all of our possessions are under pressure because we're working under duress because we can't mark it. We can't relieve that pressure and reset. So everything's just a little bit frantic. And it just
Even just outside of
it
that,
rolls on from there. Every time we get a possession, we're dumping it forward instead of looking for an outlet, whether it be 45, hand pass. Richmond did really well in closing off our space, and that's a point that they made in the commentary. But we're not helping ourselves out either by looking for someone in space or being able to, take that pressure off everyone by marking the football. It's definitely something that I've noticed over these past few games, because when some of those things do fall into our favor, like you said, we ended up ahead inside 50s, and then once you do get a player like Gemma Houghton involved, super damaging.
Woman possessed once she got the handle on it. By the way,
she does really, something that I've noticed, particularly in this game, is she does really well to keep the football in front of her when a lot of other teammates are overrunning the ball, getting clean bowled by a tumbling football. She does really well to keep it in front of her, therefore keeping it in play and keeping the defender under pressure. Another thing that I noticed is we obviously dropped Olivia Levicki as our second ruck. So on one hand, Matilda Schultz, for a young second-year player, she's having to carry a high load. But what I really enjoyed seeing was Ash Saint got put into that second ruck role, because at the moment she's ineffectual up forward because we can't
get
supply her.
Yeah.
And exactly. But the other thing that I noticed,
and Gemma and Julia are kind of Julia's taken over a little bit of that like key forward role, and Gemma's that I don't know what you call Gemma. Like, I'm trying to make comparisons to the men's game, but that's probably wrong to do. But Gemma's
she plays the game a lot like a small forward.
Yeah,
like
she does. Yeah, that's
but she's obviously one of the taller.
Yeah, and then Julia. So Ash Saint, for all the fact that she's a leading goal kicker in the AFLW at one point, all Australian stuff. You are correct. We're completely underutilizing her at the moment, and so I found it intriguing that we dropped Levicki because I don't think she'd been terrible. It was just like it was more it was a situational need to try to adjust what we're doing.
And unfortunately for Olivia, I think we have to stick with it at the moment until the players in the center all improve as a whole.
There's no point because no point playing that way, the way we play.
And I understand that, like Lauren Arnell said, like we've got 12 players sub 21 years old, and I'm sure it's that battle of wanting your structure in a perfect world and getting experience into young players, but ultimately we still need to win games of football. So you need that seniority around those players, and players with talent. If they're not senior, they need to be talented. And the thing that I really enjoyed about Saint going into the middle to chop out for Scholes was that she's actually really good at ground level, and she always managed to get a hand pass out to a player in space, or in a better position than her in her time around the football. So coming into this game and around the Kangaroos game, it's a thought that I had because we'd commented on how Teakle's season so far is so good. And then in the Freo game, we put her back and we kind of said, well, it's a point of contention. You've got your leading goal kicker going back to save the game. But if you've got Saint and Houghton up forward, that should probably be enough. But the problem is they're not involved in the game at all or nearly enough. So they need to be brought up, was my thought. Whether you put them on a wing or one of them on a wing, rotate them or what. But it seems that the change that they made was dropping Levicki and using Saint as the second ruck. And I really like that. We looked a better team transitionally when she was in the middle. And I think it's something to go forward with while we're developing our team as a whole, just to get the game going.
Yeah, you need to, because you can't
in our direction more.
Yeah, because to develop some of that younger talent, you need to be winning the ball a little bit.
You need vitality as well. You need winning morale. Like, it's all well and good to go, oh, we're here in our journey, but winning games of whatever sport is fun, and it's encouraging, and confidence,
and it
rolls on off the back of those efforts.
Yeah. I thought, speaking of the ruck thing, I thought Matilda probably had her best game for the year. Used her body. She used her body really well, because she's just a well-built human, and she some of those questions we had after the showdown, not questions, but just like she had some learning moments. You could see some of the like genesis of like her learning from the first few weeks of the season, which have been a little bit rough for her, probably by her elite standard that she set at a very young age. I thought she had a really good game, using her body in the contest and dominating the contest in that way as a ruck woman.
Well, and she's played 94% time on ground as well.
Yeah,
she won her position.
Absolutely,
for me.
Yeah, I think so too. I think she's a part of why we got back into the game a bit, because she started exerting influence in like, even if it's not like outright wins, it's just like we've talked about in men's football. It's just like sometimes if you're just creating the contest and not letting an opposition ruckman absolutely dominate, you even it up a little bit really.
They commented on the fact that her opponent Tamara Luke, I just checked, she's 36 years old, so like it's a experience versus youth, and she came out on top. Matilda Schultz.
I mean, we're talking almost double the age, so not trying to shit all over Tamara Luke right now, but like that.
Yeah, and we're not being ageist or anything.
That is like literally an experience thing, which in the AFLW is an interesting thing to call, because Tamara Luke couldn't even look at AFLW existing when she was 18, so there is a different point of difference there. But,
the one part of the game where Tamara Luke did beat Matilda Schultz was marking. Schultz didn't take a single mark on the night. Luke took 4. So you just think she
needs to, because she's huge and has great.
As soon as we get players like her marking the football, and she had opportunities, but she's just one of many in our side at the moment who just lets it slip through the fingers, or just can't control it at the moment, which it seriously needs to improve. And we'll once that happens, our game will be in much better shape.
I said to you on the night, I think, because we texted back a couple of times while watching, and I said just the dawdling in possession as well, just a little bit of, and it's not dawdling, it's just like uncertainty in possession of the ball.
Yeah.
Whereas it was nice, like as we learn, you and I, you mentioned with the Kangaroos game, but watching this one, I've heard of Monique Conti and Katie Brennan are big names.
Moncon,
Moncon and Katie Brennan, who's one of the top goal scorers in AFLW history. Players we know of.
You can see why.
Yeah, I know their faces well, but I've never actually watched them play because Port Adelaide have never played them. So they played them on and you just see, Moncon, despite being, we played her reasonably well, just her quickness in possession and her quickness of decision making, all those different things. You can see
it's that decision making that really stood out.
As you said, marking Katie Brennan, just a colossal mark up forward. She was making her presence felt every time she got an opportunity to take a mark and kick 3 goals, which was quite crucial in the game. Yeah, you can see the pathway forward. Like, we can keep saying, and we do keep saying as a point of understanding where Port Adelaide are at, is we are a very young, inexperienced team, so they've got a lot of learnings to come. But there is also the pathway is there is these players that have grown up with AFLW not being a thing, but they're still very elite at what they do now. So there is something that you can aspire to, and we should be getting to at some point soon. So yeah, the marking needs to be worked on. That's something that we have had a problem with since season 1 of Port Adelaide AFLW, and it hasn't improved much. So while we will continue to be cognizant of the fact of where the program's going and whatever, it is something I think we should be constructively critical on, is the marking needs to improve. Marking needs to
I think
improve.
in our first season, we lacked height.
Yeah.
But we don't now.
Yeah.
And
it's some of those players with some height.
And we thought that once we did bring in some, taller players, that would just naturally improve. But it hasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's just the decision making in possession, because again we saw Richmond at times, crucially in the first quarter, just be quick in possession, and we've seen other teams do it to us. And again, it's a lot of young players, so it is experience and it'll come. But we do want to start seeing some improvement there. Just you see players just take possession, they look around a couple of times, and then a player's coming in for a tackle, and then they try to take them on. It's just like there's just so many split-second decisions that are going wrong in a quick moment of possession. It's just like you need to just
transferring pressure rather than relieving it at the moment.
Yeah, a lot of there's a few hospital handballs as well. Like, you're about to come under pressure, so you handball at someone that's already under pressure, and it's just like that's just you're compounding the issue rather than sometimes we should just kick it forward. Even if I know the last touch thing, but it's often you actually got a chance to kick it inside your forward 50, but we'll handball backwards into pressure, and just real stuff like that'll
there was a moment
particularly in this game that we actually came back to a point that we could have won. We had a chance. We had we
gave him a good run for that period, start of the fourth. And there was a moment, I think we either got a free kick or we did take a mark. And there was an obvious 45-degree kick. A teammate who wasn't marked by an opposition player, but the vision to look for that player was just non-existent. And what ended up happening was, I think we just bombed it inside 50 and nothing happened. So we get the inside 50 stat, but in that moment we could have chained it a lot better. And it was an uncontested possession. Like, it would have been an uncontested mark had they taken it, uncontested possession, and it would have been able to then get us deeper inside 50, because you do need to, when you get it on the flanks in the women's game, you do need to think, I've still got 2 more possessions, 2 more disposals before a goal. Whereas in the men's game, a bit more power in the legs. You're thinking 1 possession should do it from here. 1 disposal, should do it from here. So you got to think around the flanks, 2 disposals to get a goal. Where are they going to come from? Best case scenario. And there was just an opportunity. I can't remember who it was who had the ball, who was free, but it just sticks in my mind because I was watching and they had plenty of time, and I'm like, just kick it there. Kick it there. We'll get closer. They're out in the open. We're like outside of all the congestion, but it's just that presence of mind that isn't quite there yet to take that option or even look for it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that is just the story of our side at the moment. It's just field vision is a big thing. I think that's kind of what, as you were talking, I was just like, field vision. It's just they just don't look around enough, and yeah, just a little bit of composure and possession and the marking ability. And marking is going to be the start of it, because I think that's what builds the pressure, and then it just translates out.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
Extrapolates out from
It-
that, and
every possession is under pressure because
Yeah.
of the lack of marking.
but then
No one can set up. Like, it's just chaos.
Yeah, but then beyond all that, we still at a point in the game, and like I said, we won the inside 50s. They took 38 marks to our 19, which I think speaks to a lot of.
Yeah, I mentioned that before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you did. Yeah.
That, particularly in the first half, it's honestly, what was working to our detriment the most.
Yeah.
Because they just kept rebounding it back to where they wanted it as a result.
And speaking of inside 50s, winning it but they took 7 marks inside 50 to our 1, which they did.
Yeah,
convert a lot of set shots, and center clearances 6-2, which was nice. But we there's just a lot of nice stats that we won, but it is that around the ground stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So there's points to be excited about, and again, as we said, 12 of the side were in the 18-21 bracket, which just speaks to the kind of the concerted effort at building a program of youth and building into a team to hopefully contest in a few years. But we do also need to start seeing some of those basics improve a little bit as we go forward.
Because it's not even like we're being critical of, say, our contested marking. It's even just things as a simple chest mark, which, look, I'm a man. I don't have breasts to worry about. But I don't know if that's even an issue. Like, I'm talking out of school a little bit. Female listeners of the pod, tell me. But for me, a chest mark, it should be a fairly just tick the box exercise.
Yeah, for us as guys that have grown up playing men's footy, that's a non-negotiable for us. So if there's anyone else, but it is. But I guess the thing is, we see other teams taking them, so we want to see.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
That's the thing is, like, we see Katie Brennan taking, whether it be hands out in front or chest marks, she's taken.
She took a nice, nice mark where I think she kind of got her defender inside out. And she did. Took it cleanly.
I think that was Borg. I think Borg got a good
Yeah.
lesson. She got a good lesson.
Oh, well, and look, our defense is copping it, and they're
under siege at times, because
a heavy load.
That first quarter, they had a third of the inside 50s against were in the first quarter, so they were under siege a lot early. Which is tough.
And look,
it sets the tone.
like our defense line, if you're looking like to the future, our defense line looks solid enough that it will be quite formidable in time, but they're just having to soak up so much pressure at the moment.
Yeah.
We need to help them out a little bit more.
Yeah, no, we do. Did you have anything else before we get to our votes and close off for the night?
No, that's it. Credit to the Port girls, like that they just lost the ability to play 4 quarters. Arguable whether they have ever been able to. Just the last 2 games, it's been quite evident. Funnily enough, it's just our starting, which says that we're just being a bit reactionary. But still, you can play no quarters or you can play 2 quarters. And so in the last couple of games, our second halves were good. We finished the games off well. So credit to them for sticking with it.
Well, for this one, actually making it a game, there was a period, third, fourth quarter, when the commentators were saying, "Port kick the next one," which is, if you're in that point of the game as an inexperienced side, that's a good place to be. So,
No.
I get to take the votes first for the round 5 game that this was. The week 5 game, Just Jesus Christ. By the way, just before we get to the votes, I just want to say AFLW fixturing is ridiculous.
Yeah.
The commentators tried to spin it as exciting that we get to handle this, but the girls deserve better. There's Julia Teakle's pocket profile on AFLW website. She's working part-time. I can't remember what the job was, but she's not a full-time AFLW player because she has a part-time job. AFLW players should not be having to do a Friday to Tuesday away games because Kangaroos game was away, this game was away. They should not have to do that while working part-time jobs. So AFLW commentators, like I get that you're like under the thumb of the money men.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like I
under the
get
thumb.
why you're doing it, but for those
They're trying to polish a turd.
Yeah, for those listening to the podcast, don't listen to them. It's not exciting. It is actually like it is just a bad labor situation for the AFLW women who have, you know, our captains out with an ACL. You know, these women are still part-time. They deserve better than the fixture they're given. So, yeah, that's what we're dealing with. And they're playing again on Sunday afternoon at 4:30. So get down to Alberton for that one against Carlton, which hopefully will be a fun one. Anyway, I'll get into the votes now. I just wanted to point that out because I was really mad. I get why the commentators are trying to spin it, but I was just mad as I kept on hearing.
They're being told to.
Jesus, is exciting to be playing on a Tuesday night. I was just like, fuck off. No, it's not.
I understand. Yeah, I heard one member of the AFLW team, but yeah, they said like, you know, they have to try and, you know, do what they can to get it in front of people's faces, and midweek, you know, football, you know, people are sitting down watching TV anyway, and and it's maybe that argument of how much value you have in attendance and atmosphere rather than people viewing on TV. I know that's.
I'd love to see the numbers because on a Tuesday
in
night,
that
most
the
people
men's competition
isn't Tuesday night like Netflix night or something? Like I don't know. I just that's my cynical view. Is just like people are just not thinking about watching footy on a Tuesday night anyway. So I was caught by surprise by the fact it was playing on there, and I'm a Port fan. Like I had to, you know.
They've tried to spin it many ways. Yeah. I don't agree with it though. Yeah.
The women
it's all just a bit gutless.
No, I just wanted to point out that as much as it's nice to have Tuesday night footy to watch as a fan, if you like we happen to just be able to watch it, it's actually not good for the women that are out there trying to make a living playing footy, and we want them to be able to make a living playing footy at some point. So yeah, anyway, my votes. Let's get into the votes so we can finish off. My one vote, as you said on the last one, Abby Darrick will come up a lot, and you know it's not often she'll probably get the one vote, but she gets the one vote from me for this one. 15 disposals. Thought she had some. I actually thought it was one of her better. I'm already like questioning my votes. One of her better games. I just thought she tackling pressure was good. Contested possessions, she was second to someone who will end up in the votes later on here in a moment, and I'm sure Jamie already knows where I'm going with that. But Abby had a really good game. She's just I just think there's a few other players that were just slightly better in this one. I actually think we had a lot of players. We had a really good group of players in this game. Just unfortunately it was lost, but Abby gets the one vote. My two votes goes to Ange Foley. Again, as I said last game, she's leading from the front. She had 17 disposals. She had 473 meters gained, which was second on the team to someone else that will come up later in the votes. She's she's having to take over a leadership, not leadership role. She's always had a leadership role.
Yeah,
that's what she's been recruited for. But considering her, I think it was a game. Yeah. Was it last week or the week before that we said the commentators gave her a bit of a. It's kind of mentioned her age.
For her being her age. Old, something like that. Yeah,
she's applying herself like she's in her 20s. Like, and I
but with Cuthbertson, like previously being there, she didn't have to be as much of a leader, and now with Cuthbertson out, she's had to just sit back on that mantle of being an elder statesman in the back line particularly, but for the whole team.
Yeah, but the fact she's applying herself and throwing herself into the battle like she's in her 20s, I really appreciate. Her disposal efficiency, I had that number here somewhere and I've lost it. So
it's 82.4%.
There we go. Thank you. Did I actually already say that? I can't even remember. It's late and
No, you hadn't.
I've been awake since 5:30 this morning. It's 11. Anyway, I loved her game.
We're nearly done. Nearly done.
Yeah. And her disposal of I had it right next to her name in my notes. Good God.
Thanks for hanging in, listeners, as well. We love you all.
Yes, no, thank you. It's an interesting episode because of all the things we've had to wrap up.
This will probably be split.
No, I'm going to release it at 1. It's going to be Francis Ford Coppola's like megalopolis without the
this is Ben-Hur.
without the controversy. My 3 votes, I mentioned it before, but Matilda Schultz, disposal efficiency good. Led us in contested possessions. Like I said, I think she exerted her influence in the right way on the ruck contest, which is what I'm looking for first and foremost. Is that kind of stuff. And then, as you said, marking could be better, but she's in her second year, 19 years old or whatever she is. She's like, big. And
she's in her 15th game?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
We've said we say this about men's players often. Big, tall players take longer to develop because you need to. There's a reason. Lionel Messi, like this, again, diving into it. Lionel Messi was a good
Brian
player.
Myers.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
But Lionel Messi was a good player at 10 because he's short. Like when you've got a shorter, your center of gravity is shorter, you can figure out your body sooner. When you're a tall, lanky, big player, whatever you are, Matilda Scholes, Jordan Sweet, whoever you are, takes longer to grow into your body sometimes. There's a reason you don't see, like Tom Hawkins at Geelong took a couple of years to break in, and he's now a champion and retired as a champion of the club and all-time great. It takes, so she is playing at a high level at 19. So, that's why I had to get into the vote. She's you can see her growth quite quickly at times. 3 votes for Matilda. Little tangent there, but I just wanted to explain she's growing quite well considering her position and her body composition.
I agree.
Yeah, my 4 votes. Gemma Houghton I fucking love Gemma. By the way, teal long sleeves. Let's fucking go.
Yeah. They got the fanfare it deserved.
Yeah. No, I gotta work out some graphics with that because I fucking love it. But 2 goals, really good goals, good Galazzo, a little bit of DBJ stuff. But she just became a woman possessed once it started coming down to the 50. She was just
get it in her area, let her do the rest.
Yeah, she just her disposal efficiency isn't great. I think it's 38% or something like that. There's a lot of numbers that don't look good, but the game changed when it was in her area, and I think that's a barometer thing for her. She was applying pressure, even if the ball came into a contested area with where she was, and she got the ball and it came out and it wasn't an effective disposal or whatever. It became a stoppage or something like that, and it helped build the forward pressure for us. So and became a part of why we were in the game, so to speak, later on. She was big in that, and obviously 2 great goals, and just one of the great Gemma Houghton games. It's just a woman possessed and loved what she was doing. My 5 votes, Molly Brooksby, 20 disposal at 65%, 525 meters gained. One of a young prop, having just come in last year. She's impressed me a little bit last week as well, but this week was just really a coming out game for me, as far as my attention to her, and it in particular this game being one that we were in until late, she was in the game all the way through and built into the game well as well. And just looking at the young crop, it's really impressive to see her in amongst that. And it's really heartwarming to see that 3 of my votes was, Abby. Obviously, she's been around for a couple of years, but still young. Tildes, obviously, a couple of years, and Brooksby, and then you Ange Foley, love her being in the votes, and then Gemma, who's got a lot of years. But yeah, a young crop is really, really impressive to me, and really, really just this is a Brooksby breakout game for me, for what she can.
Yeah, she's been building
for
sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I had her as an honorable mention for the Kangaroos game, knowing quite well that I was going to put her in my votes for this game. Well, I had it written down in front of me.
Right in front of
my
me.
honorable mention for this game was Ashley Saint, but already discussed why I thought she held immense value in the game against Richmond. My 1 vote goes to Abby Dowrick, 15 disposals. 13 contested. Just run of the mill. 3 scoring involvements, 4 clearances, 5 tackles. On Molly Brooksby, I've actually given her my 2 votes. She had, for all of her disposals and meters gained, 8 rebound 50s too, and she had 4 marks. So talent pathways, how much it makes a difference. But Scholes has come through a talent pathway too. So, but Brooksby, she took 4. She put her hand up in that regard. So, but she had no score involvements out of all of her disposals. So, which is a very harsh way to drop you down the list, because I think on average she's, what's it, like 40 meters per kick. I think it was in the Kangaroos game. I can't do that math right now. But she has a good kick on her. Is essentially. Yeah, I know you've been slurping that red wine down while we've been recording, but so you could say that one of her kicks gets a meterage and then it ends up in a stoppage, which then reverts all score chains of possession to 0, and then the score chain starts again. So harsh assessment by me to put her down, but I agree with everything you said. It was a breakout game for her, and it's been building across the start of the season. So awesome signs. 3 votes goes to Tilly Schultz, same as you. Tilly. 17 disposals is actually her career best. So I only know this because from when you were talking, I opened up her player profile. She's 183 centimeters, which is huge in the women's game. I'll just keep getting distracted by things that I see on the screen here.
About 1 centimeter taller than me, I think.
She's taller than I am. Anyway, 17 disposals, which was a career best, 14 of which were contested, like you said. 4 score involvements, 5 clearances, which is also a career best for her. 7 tackles, 2 of those tackles were inside 50 as well. So one of her better games for the year, clearly. And
in a career, to be fair as well.
Like I said
Considering
before,
the opposition, I think too is she hasn't played the Kangaroos Tigers before. It's the weird thing about the AFLW is she's had one of her better games against a good team that she hasn't played before. So
and like I said before, she has to carry a fairly high load, 94% time on ground as the sole ruckman, and she plays as a bit of a midfielder as well. So just working her ass off across the whole ground. She looked fucked particularly late. They were resting her forward a little bit. She looked like she'd had a big effort game. So moving on to 4 votes, Ange Foley for me, 17 disposals, 7 of which were contested, 82.4% disposal efficiency. 473 meters gained, 2 score involvements, 7 inside 50s, 6 rebound 50s. So just going off the back of that whole leadership angle, the disposal efficiency, which is significantly lower in the women's game on average compared to the men's game. So to move it at 82% is fantastic. Just really putting in some hard yards as a leader of our club at the moment. But 7 inside 50s and 6 rebound 50s would say that she's working bloody hard both ways too. My best on ground goes to Gemma Houghton. Like at the end of it, like we had to get her into the game.
I love that we got the same mix of players, just different votes.
Just and I think Schultz was the same, but and Dowrick, but yeah, I just loved Houghton's game. Frank's probably by the position that she plays, and we did have to get her into the game for her to have an effect on the game. But 13 disposals, 7 of which are contested, 165 meters gained as a forward. The 2 goals, 2 included in her 8 score involvements. She also had 2 inside 50s and 2 tackles inside 50 as well. So, she's a game breaker. We just need to find ways of getting her into the game more often.
That's the big thing with her, is just figuring out. That's the big thing with her and Saint, as you said, with her like improving Saint's involvement in the game. Like we've got 2 game breaking athletic forwards. We just need to figure out their mix, with obviously the fact that Julia Teakle's broken out as well. It's like we've got some talent there. It's just figuring out how to use them and their athletic ability, because you can use them up the ground. But once she came into the game, that changed the game. You can literally point to the point that where she got her first disposal somewhere in the second quarter, the game changed and became more even and started to break in our direction, apart from our ability to finish inside 50. I thought about giving it a best on. I wanted to give Molly, but I'm still I love Gemma, and the fact
Molly's got 20 disposals, which again is just a bit ridiculous. In the context of things as well. Again, for someone of her age too. So
her age profile for me was like, I was just like, that's a really impressive effort from someone of your experience level at this point. Really good. That about wraps it up. It's been a long episode. Really appreciate everyone sticking with it, because we've gone through, I think we ended up spending half an hour, 40 minutes on list management stuff, which was important. There's been a lot of stuff there, and then the prelim final, and then which there was a lot of stuff to go through there, and then obviously the women's games that have happened over the last week, which we'd love to spend more time on, and we will over the next few weeks. We've got nothing to do but talk about the women's games, which will be fun. It'll be nice to just delve into them and give them the proper attention they deserve. It's been a clusterfuck of the last month, really, trying to do both, because our emotions have been very heavily leaned towards the men's, which again isn't giving anything, but it's just the fact the men's have been going towards finals. But it'll be fun to just lean into the women now that the men's are unfortunately not playing in the grand final. We would love to be reviewing a grand final, but we won't be doing that. But the women play Carlton at Alberton on 4:30. Again, fixturing 4:30 at Alberton on Sunday afternoon. Like the AFL goes, get the crowds to the games, and we'll give you more fixtures. It's like, yeah, sure, give us Alberton Oval on Sunday afternoon. Sure. But I'm going to be trying to make it down there anyway. So, so get behind the women. That's the Port Adelaide team, and they've got a couple of, as we ran through a fixture earlier in the year, but they've got a couple of fun night games coming up later in the season as well. I think Collingwood on a Thursday or Friday night, and another Thursday or Friday night game. So there's lots of opportunities to get around them. But appreciate
get around them.
Get around the ladies. As we've said, there's a lot of great players that we've got. Great young players, great experienced players like Ange Foley, great young players like Matilda Schultz. Gemma Houghton is just a revelation to watch when she's in the form she was in the last game. So lots of fun players to watch in this women's side. Lots of just great youth. Abby Dowrick, Ebony O'Day. I don't know. You could run through the side, and there's actually a lot of exciting youth. We're not even getting into the players that are injured and are going to be coming in next year. So, yeah, get around the women. We'll be looking forward to really just diving into them over the next few weeks now that we've got away from the men's season. As much as I'm sad that the men's season's done, it'll be fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But thank you for sticking with the podcast this week. Lot going on it. But yeah, sticking with me, getting through a bottle of red wine during the podcast. Thank you, Jamie, for sticking with. It's been
understandable.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the men's season done though. So anyone that I do encourage people. I do notice the downloads go down when it's an AFLW specific podcast. I do encourage people to stick with the podcast. If you to learn about the women's side and get invested in them. We've already had some feedback from people that they're like, yeah, I'm really like looking forward to someone giving us some education about the women's side and helping me get to know it. So yeah, stick with it. But anyone that just doesn't have any interest in it, but again, I encourage you to stick with it. But anyone that is just here for the men's stuff, thank you for listening throughout the season. Yeah, we'll be doing a review in a couple of weeks, whenever it fits in with the postseason schedule as far as how the men's list management stuff and trade schedules go and whatever else. We'll be doing that in a couple of weeks. But yeah, there won't be any real AFL men's stuff over the next couple of weeks unless some massive breaking news that blows our minds happens and we go like emergency pod now. Beyond that, we'll we might touch on any news stories in AFL women's reviews, but beyond that, it'll be a season review in a few weeks. So yeah, that's about it as always. And now, being that it's purely AFLW season, it's Khan the lady pair. Love you, ladies.
Yeah, go lady pairs. Thanks everyone for listening thus far. Thanks for the support. Go lady pairs.
That's about all she wrote.